We never know where life will lead us or what may hinder us along the way. But while every day can feel like one big question mark, it doesn't have to. With the right insights, strategies, and solutions from Western and Southern Financial Group, together we can look ahead to leave the unknown behind.
What's Pro Football Focus doing? Last week they had Brady. This week they got Brady.
We're literally doing it differently from everybody else.
As a matter of fact, moving forward from this point on, I will not make reference to PFF.
Ready to get into it?
Yeah.
All right. We're going team by team.
I would be very careful about slinging stone.
Am I going to get sued?
Is that legal on this?
I like football, I like football season and all the things that go with it.
Welcome into the PFF NFL podcast. Steve Palazzolo, Sam Monson. We are live on YouTube. And, of course, we are previewing week 4 of the NFL. We'll go game by game. One thing to remind everybody, you have to check out the Wednesday podcast, either if you're watching on YouTube or if you're listening, because that's when we preview Thursday Night Football. We already have the preview in the books. Like Ryan Ruiz from Dan Le Batard Show, we previewed Bengals-Dolphins, tonight's matchup. And it's just an overall fun show, so check out Wednesdays. Hi, Sam.
What's up, Steve?
How you doing? Did you get the tweet out there that we're live?
I just tweeted it right now on your instructions, yes.
Perfect. I tried to make the intro long enough that you could craft the tweet.
That's well done.
All right, so we've already discussed Bengals-Dolphins. I picked the Bengals.
You did.
The line's 3.5 now. I'll take that. I'll take 3.5.
No, we can't. It's locked in at 4.
I'll take 3.5.
No, because that way you're screwing our guest if you start changing after the fact. No, you're locked in at 4. I'm locked in at 4 the other way. So it's moving in my direction.
So you get the Dolphins as underdogs here, Thursday Night Football. We'll see how that one plays out, but let's get right in to the Week 4 games. Couple really nice games at the top. So let's start with Chiefs-Bucs. It's Sunday Night Football. As of right now, it's still supposed to be in Tampa Bay, right?
Yep.
There's a backup plan for Minnesota, which is not
Minnesota?
really right down the street. Yes.
I thought there was one in Miami. How did it get moved to Minnesota?
Well, I know the Bucs are practicing in Miami, but I thought that I read somewhere that the backup plan was Minnesota.
You might be entirely right. I'd only heard Miami, and Minnesota is quite a departure from Miami and indeed Tampa.
So this line has moved a little bit, but as Eric Eager, rest in peace, he's out today. He reminded us that everything between
people are just dying left and right. The
PFF.
late Austin Gale, rest in peace, Eric Eager.
They're dead to PFF. Yeah, that's what we do.
That's fine.
Yeah, his locker, we cleared out his locker. That was his locker.
Oh, that one.
That was
there.
it. Yeah.
Okay.
We cleared it out, through an old Dolphins jersey in it.
Yeah.
We did.
They've done a great job of clearing it out. It seems to have got stuff in it.
Anyway, he always says, those lines in between +3, -3 don't mean a whole lot, but the Chiefs were favored earlier in the week by 1 or 2 points. Now it's Bucs by 1 heading into this Sunday night matchup. Little rematch of the Super Bowl from 2020.
Yep.
We got Brady Mahomes, 6? I think it's the 6th time that they've gone head-to-head in a matchup here.
Which is quite a lot when you consider Brady's 127 years old, and we were like, oh, maybe we're going to get 1 or 2 of these.
It is. I mean, it's fun for the narrative street type of stuff, because remember we said with the Super Bowl, Mahomes was going for back-to-back. He was going for his 2nd in 3 years as a starter at the time, and Brady had 6, and it was like, all right, if Mahomes is ever going to, chase the GOAT, kind of got to win the Super Bowl and do this thing. And then Brady's like, I'll take 7, and you're still playing catch-up, Pat. But, still a long way to go.
Even just since Mahomes came in the league, we're tied.
Yeah. Since Mahomes came into the league, Brady's got 2 Super Bowls.
Yeah.
And Mahomes has 1.
Well, you're right. He's ahead.
So that's when, 15 years from now, when we're like, hey, is Patrick Mahomes the greatest of all time? You're going to go back to the era when these two guys were both playing together and Brady was, collecting Social Security and still winning games and Super Bowls and the whole thing.
Brady's, the Super Bowl, the run that Brady's on, the rings, it's set a completely unreasonable bar for anybody trying to chase.
So, of course, people are questioning Tom Brady once again. He's 45. The stats don't look great, but they've played with no wide receivers. Their top 3 were out last week.
And their offensive line has been in ribbons. They're another of these teams that are down to at least their 3rd-string left tackle. Now, to be fair, their 3rd-string left tackle might be better than their 2nd-string left tackle. So they went downgrade and then upgrade potentially. But Brady,
Brandon Walton filling in admirably so far for the Bucs.
Yeah, this is, and their second string center. They're starting a rookie at left guard, so this is 3/5 of the offensive line is down on where it was a year ago and should be generally. Brady is the least pressured quarterback in the NFL this season, and that is not necessarily an indication of how good that offensive line is performing. That's an indication of Brady, once again, having as quick an average time to throw as any quarterback in the NFL.
It really is 2.2 seconds, so quickest in the NFL. But this Bucs offense, it's still the Bruce Arians scheme, which wants to go down the field. You don't really have the receivers to go downfield. Brady has played well in this system since showing up in 2020. So they need Julio Jones back. Reportedly, Todd Bowles, now Julio was limited at practice on Wednesday. Mm-hmm. Supposedly, Todd Bowles says, hey, he would have played last week. Right. If he could have played, we're just going to give him an extra week. We don't want him to get re-injured. We're going to play the long game here.
The question is always with Julio, now that he's injured again, okay, even when he's playing, what does that look like? Like if he's playing and he looks like the guy from week 1, now we've got something to work with. If he's playing and it looks like the guy that plays through injuries and just doesn't look like himself, I mean, it's not that much better than just not having him out there,
Well, the backups, the other options are Jalen Darden and Scotty Miller and Brashad.
This is true. It's
another mash unit this week, though, because if you're just looking at the injury report, Brashad Perryman, Russell Gage, Julio Jones, Chris Godwin, all technically questionable, all limited at practice. Perryman actually didn't practice. So still don't really know who's going to be out there. Mike Evans should be back, though. He's coming back from the suspension.
Yep.
I have a feeling it's going to be Mike Evans early and often in this game. Brady trying to get him back in the mix. And just from a trust factor, he's the guy. There's no real tight ends that they trust. The Bucs need to get healthy at wide receiver if they're going to do any damage here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think Brady's numbers are not good, but I think Brady has actually been playing reasonably well so far this season, particularly when you factor in everything around him, which is the man's offensive line is nowhere near what it was a year ago, and he's been throwing to nobody at wide receiver for a decent chunk of this season so far. Hopefully, at least one of those things is going to improve somewhat in this game, and then we get to see a little bit more what Brady can actually do. And then the other element of this, obviously, is the other side of the ball where Tampa Bay's defense looks very good, and they're going up against Mahomes and the Chiefs, which is obviously a stern test for any defense.
Mahomes so far this season had that game week 1 where the offense was cooking against the Arizona Cardinals, 5 touchdowns, 360 yards, wide open receivers left and right. Mahomes making good decisions, throwing the ball around and spreading it around. Then the Chargers game, Mahomes gets away with 3 turnover-worthy plays. Didn't matter. They all fell incomplete. Chiefs come back, win the game with a pick 6 late against the Chargers. And then last week, this was one of those weird games where the Chiefs felt like they should have had the advantage against this Colts defense. But it was reminiscent of last year, not necessarily schematically, but just from, where the big plays, where, Mahomes' best throw gets dropped by Travis Kelce in the end zone that would have been a touchdown. And I don't think the Chiefs, again, we said on the Monday show, nothing against the Colts, but I think the Chiefs lost this game. I think they actively lost this game with about 6 or 7 huge mistakes. But Mahomes was holding the ball a long time in the pocket. This was the game when you said, or when I thought, when you lost Tyreek Hill and you're still trying to figure out who's my next guy, who's my go-to guy, who am I going to in crunch time beyond Travis Kelce, this was one of those games I kind of envisioned with Mahomes without Tyreek Hill. And the first 2 weeks, it was like, oh, maybe they're fine. Maybe they'll be okay. But this one, I think for the first time, brought up some of those question marks.
Yeah, I mean, so there's obviously the controversy with where PFF grades had Mahomes versus what his box score numbers or his overall production or the eye test says. But even if we zoom out a bit and kind of look at the last year plus of Mahomes, it hasn't been as spectacular as it was, not even right at the start. For a sustained, 3-year stretch, Mahomes' play was pretty absurd, spectacular, mind-blowing, very little wrong with it, very little negative plays. There haven't been that many of those games in the last year and a half. You know, we've certainly had evidence of it, like the playoff game against Buffalo, where both quarterbacks were pretty spectacular going back and forth. And then obviously Mahomes is the guy that comes out on the right side of that. The week before against Pittsburgh was also spectacular. So they're definitely still there. It's not like I'm saying, oh, Mahomes is cooked. The NFL's figured out Mahomes, what's going on. But I think the baseline has definitely dropped relative to when we first saw him show up. And this is another defense where you're like, it's not going to be that easy to go out there and just carve those guys to ribbons. When
Mahomes was tearing up the league, and not that he's not tearing up the league right now. He's still very good. But he had 3 straight years of 90-plus grades. And I used to always compliment him by saying, hey, don't look at the big-time throws. Don't look at the highlight reel. Don't look at the stuff that everybody points out. Actually look at the quote-unquote easier stuff. He does that really well. Things like just hitting underneath throws, not missing a ton of throws, taking what's there. And then you complement that with the special. But his big-time throw rate has gone down. It's nothing like that 18 to 20 stretch when he was among the highest in the league. Last year he was low. This year he's kind of low again. And I think this is part of how the entire league is trending. Passing production across the league is down a little bit, and they're forcing quarterbacks to do the stuff I used to compliment Mahomes about, the underneath stuff, right? Just take what's there, throw the ball accurately, avoid negative plays and all that fun stuff. And I think, again, it comes down to this: how patient can he be? How much does he want to create those chunk plays? Because you could always just dial up Tyreek, and you don't necessarily have that right now, so you have to play that patient game. And the Bucs defense is doing a good job of making life difficult for quarterbacks so far this year.
I think we've kind of reached, everyone keeps talking about the football is cyclical, everything comes and goes. It's a balance, it's a scale that tips one way or the other, a seesaw effect, and offense was just in such an ascendant plane the last couple of years, just going up and up and up, the numbers going stratospheric, and you're like, wow, how can defenses ever get this back? Because all the rules have been sort of, every re-emphasis or every change in rule, every bend of the rule has all been about making offense even more effective and ever more productive. I actually think schematically, though, defenses have started to a pretty good job of fighting back, and all of a sudden you're sort of looking at what they're doing right now, and they do appear to be curtailing all of these offenses and at least making it, putting a cap on how dominant and how productive they can be. And it's not like they're reinventing anything crazy. Like we're talking about the thing that's causing the most problems is a bunch of split safety, too high looks, which, okay, there's more sophistication to it. There are layers
it's not just like 2001 cover 2.
That's what I'm saying. Right. Like, it's not like everyone has just gone, okay, well, let's just run Tampa Bay's defense from 2002, That's not what's happening. But from a big picture standpoint, that's kind of what's happening. You know what I mean? We've just pivoted back to this kind of stuff, albeit with some more layers to it and some adjustments and, extra pieces of sophistication. But nobody sort of found something, crazy and unique that the league wasn't doing before. It's just we've shifted with the emphasis, and that's, I think, having a dramatic effect on quarterbacks.
Yeah, man, the league is all about making adjustments. So you've got more, zone-heavy just play around the league. You've got more, a little bit more disguise and blending of coverages. I think Seattle 3 is almost like a too high type of look because the strong safety plays at depth. I mean, there's a lot of nuance to this stuff. And when we get into the game here, Chiefs, Bucs, how much do you make of the Chiefs just kind of, look, if some what ifs there. Mahomes made some spectacular plays against the Chargers that, not that you could take those away, but beyond those couple spectacular plays, it's kind of a rough outing for that offense. So we're talking, back-to-back weeks of uneven play. The Bucs offense has not been good this entire season. Is this another low-scoring game despite Mahomes versus Brady here?
Yeah, it could. I mean, you kind of look at the Colts, and you're like, well, if the Colts can keep a lid on the Chiefs' offense, surely the Bucs can do something. The Bucs have, I think, a dramatically better defense at pretty much every step. So, but we're also looking at that game and saying, well, that shouldn't have happened. Even watching the game, it doesn't make any sense. So I'm actually very torn on this game. I think Kansas City's offense should have a reasonable degree of success just because of that starting point they have and how good they are as a baseline. But Tampa Bay's defense is legit, and that's going to cause them significant problems. And then the same thing on the other side, I think Tampa Bay's offense will be better with a couple of extra bodies back in the lineup, but the Kansas City's defense is legit, so they'll probably keep a reasonable cap on that. So I'm stuck in the middle. I don't like this game at all from a betting standpoint with that line sort of right in the middle, but I think I'm leaning Kansas City.
Matchup to watch for me, Luke Godecki, the left guard. We've said Godecki and Godecki, both things. So I go back and forth, one of them will be right.
Yeah, probably.
Most likely. He's got a pass blocking grade of 31.3 so far. The rookie tackle conversion from Central Michigan. It's been okay in the run game, but he's got to go up against Chris Jones. I mean, if I'm the Chiefs, I know it's not, sometimes you play strong week and all that stuff. I want Chris Jones one-on-one. Even Shaq Mason struggling a little bit in pass protection. So that interior pressure, again, you're saying Brady's pressure rate isn't there because he's just getting rid of the ball. But yeah, you'll take that if you're the Chiefs and just saying, hey, dink and dunk all the way through, because that's what we're saying the league wants. But if they try to get the ball to Julio and try to get the ball to Evans, interior pressure is going to be a factor potentially.
And the Chiefs have shown they're willing to move Chris Jones around to find the weakest link on an offensive line. Like they did it against the Chargers. He started off playing against Zion Johnson, the rookie, for most of the early part of the game. Zion Johnson was actually doing a really good job against him. So he went across to Matt Filer and just started to wreck house. So all of a sudden it's like, all right, well, let's just stay here then. I would imagine, I don't know if they're starting off sort of identifying the weak link before the game and then seeing how it goes and adjusting if they need to, or if they're just playing it by ear as the game goes on. But either way, I would imagine they're zeroing in on Godecki as the weak link, and he'll see a lot of Chris Jones.
Other thing to keep an eye on, remember these two teams played twice in that 2020 season. The Chiefs absolutely wrecked the Bucs defense in the first quarter. Tyreek Hill had almost 200 yards in the first quarter, getting behind the defense left and right. The Chiefs looked unstoppable. The Bucs bounced, they fought back to lose by 3, 27-24 in the regular season. Then in the Super Bowl was when Mahomes didn't have his offensive line. Bucs created a lot of pressure. They forced a lot of the underneath stuff. Cat and mouse game here, these schematics of how the Chiefs are going to attack Todd Bowles' defense. I assume Bowles, they're bringing the same game plan, saying, hey, win underneath. I think the Chiefs will have more answers. All that said, I think the Bucs are a different team with Julio, with any kind of receiving talent there and a pretty good defense this year. I'll take the Bucs to cover. My record's terrible, so
yeah, it's really bad.
Don't listen to me here.
You haven't been within.
You get the Chiefs?
You haven't been within a game of 500 yet.
I'm a slow starter. They say you're not good till after Thanksgiving. Isn't that right? You have till Thanksgiving to do
You're
stuff.
not good until.
Isn't that the? Hey, as you all know, this season we've been following Symbol, the stock market for sports. They're back with us here. Symbol lets you trade pro and college teams like stocks and even earn cash dividend payouts when your teams win. It's a great way to speculate on sports teams in a long-term stock market style format. Here's a little midseason update on how a few teams are performing since week 1. The Eagles are up over 18% after their 3-0 start to the season. Tua and the Dolphins are up over 14% since week 1. Look at this. It's like the real stock market. The Las Vegas Raiders are down 7% in September after their 0-3 start. And Chicago is now the second cheapest team after dropping over 2%, even though they're 2-1. I guess the market's not a huge fan of Justin Fields. Don't tell Bears fans. And the big winner this week, the Jacksonville Jaguars are up over 10% on the week after destroying the Chargers. So you can check out the entire market by downloading the Symbol mobile app for iOS by searching SIMBULL in the App Store. Use the code FOOTBALL to receive a free team stock valued up to $150 upon signing up. It's a fun market and a great way to speculate on teams that are rising and falling. I love this. I just love this concept. Download the app, create a free account, enter code FOOTBALL to get a free stock valued up to $150 after signing up. All right, other huge game this week. Buffalo Bills at the Baltimore Ravens. Have they played in Baltimore since Josh Allen's been good? I think they did when he wasn't good, but not since he's been good. It's usually in Buffalo. So you've got the Bills favored by 3. And both teams coming off of, well, not directly coming off of, but both teams have one loss to the Dolphins.
Yeah.
That's where they are.
True.
Bills coming off a loss to the Dolphins. The Ravens had the heartbreak against the Dolphins a couple weeks ago. Lamar's our highest graded quarterback. I mean, I don't know. He's playing well. He's our highest graded quarterback. Why is everybody saying we're hating him? Lamar's our highest graded quarterback right now. And I'm not even going to say MVP. I don't like the stupid MVP stuff. we can't talk about MVP less than 20% into the season. Why do people do that? Why?
I mean, you know my stance on MVP. The award is
you never want to talk about
terrible.
it. So Lamar's playing great. Josh Allen's playing well, despite last week the turnover-worthy plays. What are you looking for in this one?
Yeah, like last week essentially torpedoes Josh Allen's season grade. He's got like 2 really good games, and then last week we were graded in the 50s, which we explained on yesterday's podcast, essentially 6 turnover-worthy plays.
Go listen to Explain the Grade yesterday, Josh Allen breakdown.
Towards the end of the podcast, you should find it on the like hyperlink things, the click and boom, straight there.
Also, Spotify, if Spotify is not working, let us know, please. Spotify wasn't working.
Stone fixed it, he says.
He did?
Yeah.
I heard it wasn't working like for a lot of different places.
Yeah.
It was just down.
It's probably Austin's fault.
Did you email Austin and tell him?
I didn't. If we've got it fixed, we're okay. Maybe Austin's like shadow banned us from the Spotify
he might.
back end,
Yeah, maybe I should stop hating on him so he doesn't hate back. He's got a lot of power now over there. Because we're catching Rogan, and he's like, hey, man,
Yeah, of course.
You slow him down.
That's exactly what you got to protect Joe Rogan's podcast from us, coming up on the rails.
I think that's definitely true.
Yeah. So this game, after last week, I think it's going to be pretty interesting seeing how Baltimore lines up on defense against Josh Allen. Because, I don't think last week represents, one of those blueprint games. Oh, is this the blueprint to stopping Josh Allen, blitz the crap out of him, and then have really good players on the back end? No, because that's quite difficult to do. The Ravens obviously used to be a really blitz-happy team when Wink was the defensive coordinator and they were dialing up pressure from all over the place. They don't do it as much anymore. This season, Baltimore blitzes 27.5% of the time, which is 16th. Bang average, essentially. So what they need to do to combat Josh Allen is not going to be sending a ton of pressure. It's not going to be dropping back into coverage. I think their strategy has to be just mix it up enough to keep him off balance and try and at least make him sit there and diagnose what's going on before he makes the play and kills it anyway. So that, to me, I think is the real matchup to watch. Is Josh Allen is still an alien. The guy is still ridiculously difficult to contain, to slow down, to stop. He is that offense effectively, with help from Stephon Diggs and all those kinds of things. But you don't have the horses, you don't have the game plan, you don't have the defense to do what Miami did. You're going to have to do it in a slightly different way.
Yeah, and I'm looking at it's a different scheme in Baltimore too, because they're playing less man coverage. They're playing more zone, like we've talked about. It's kind of a league-wide trend. And I feel like the Ravens kind of have to. Remember I mentioned last week, it was Marcus Peters and Marlon Humphrey both had excellent grades. It was like they were in the 90s, and the next 3 corners on the roster were in the 20s and 30s for the Ravens. Not saying that's a thing that happens every single week, but it's just top-heavy over there in that secondary. So how do the Bills exploit those mismatches? Because if Stephon Diggs is on guys like Brandon Stevens and Jalen Armour-Davis, the way they're playing, it's a massive mismatch. So are they gonna play more man? Are they gonna do more shadowing with a Marlon Humphrey, with a Marcus Peters against some of the better Bills receivers? Or are they just gonna say, okay, we're gonna play it soft, keep things in front of us? That's a huge question for me. And then we talked about the Bucs offensive line. I'll reiterate too, the Bills offensive line has not been great this year. They were kind of getting away with it the first 2 weeks, but from a pass protection standpoint, the Ravens might be able to get some pressure. Their edge rushers have been kind of hit or miss, but Justin Houston's still playing good ball, and Justin Madubuike, guy that I really liked coming out of college a couple of years ago. They grabbed him in the 3rd round. He's playing the best ball of his career, 84.1 grade. He's got the highest grade on that Baltimore defense so far. I would just keep an eye on him rushing from the interior for the Ravens defense.
Neither of these offensive lines have been particularly good. I think they both rank in the bottom half of offensive lines in the NFL so far this season. Buffalo's is definitely, it's clinging on. Like, they're not where they've been. This is the risk. We've said this for a while, of this approach of try and get average across the board. That's great. That's fine. That's a good strategy. But sometimes it doesn't function if you get the low end of the variance of the 5 average guys, because all of a sudden that's by definition below average, and you get struggles. So the run blocking in particular for Buffalo has been bad. I think they would take that trade-off, below average run blocking versus good pass blocking, but even the pass blocking hasn't been good. Like, Roger Saffold was brought in. People like that move, I think, because you think back to what Roger Saffold was at his best, but the man has been dealing with a lot of injuries over the last few years. And Roger Saffold in 2022 is not the same as Roger Saffold, back when he was playing at his best, 2020, 19, 18, that kind of thing. So he's been having a pretty rough time of it. The interior generally is pretty weak. I think that's definitely an area where Baltimore can exploit. And their pass rush, they're another team where they don't necessarily have a superstar, but they've got a lot of guys chipping in with pressure. Like all of them are generating pressure, including Justin Houston, who's still trucking on.
I love the edge rushers that just keep going. Like Dwight Freeney, he slowed down. They all slowed down a little bit, but they just keep producing.
Justin Houston's not even that old. It's just that he dealt with a lot of injuries, and he felt like he was on the way down.
He did, yeah, exactly.
So early in his career.
So here's a list of players that are, per ESPN, listed as questionable for the Buffalo Bills. Ryan Bates, offensive line. Ed Oliver on the defensive line. Mitch Moore, center. Jordan Poyer, safety. Tommy Doyle, tackle. Dawson Knox, tight end. Jordan Phillips, defensive tackle. Dane Jackson, corner. Deion Dawkins, tackle. Cam Lewis, corner. Gabe Davis, wide receiver. And Justin Murray, tackle. It's the Bills' questionable list.
Yeah, that's quite extensive.
What are we even previewing here? I don't know who's going to play football. J.K. Dobbins came back for the Ravens last week. He's got a chest injury that showed up in the injury report yesterday. He's questionable. And technically, Justin Houston also questionable with a groin injury. Patrick McCarry, the backup left tackle, had a sprained ankle against the Patriots. He's questionable as well.
The backup left tackle.
Was he second string? Because he filled in there
Juwan
last
James week. Was the
Juwan
string.
James. He filled in
6
first.
minutes before he went down.
Okay, I've been meaning to make a running tally of teams with left tackle.
There are multiple teams,
injuries.
I think, that are down to their third string left tackle. And
Yes.
Baltimore is down to were down at some point to their fourth.
So the Dolphins, Teron Armstead hasn't missed time, right?
He missed a couple of snaps, I think. But
Okay,
it's not
that's
prime
fine.
time.
Bucs and Chiefs. The Bucs have left tackle injuries. I'm just trying to get a running tally here. Ravens.
You want to do this on the fly?
Yeah. Because we're gonna talk about every team. I just want to discuss it along the way here.
It's great.
Bucs, Ravens, Deion Dawkins for the Bills is a maybe. So.
Uh-huh.
All right, man. 3 points here. The Ravens are getting 3 in this game. I don't know. I kind of like that. I like the Ravens getting points at home.
Yeah, and so what's interesting to me is that you're still dealing with the majority of the Bills' starting secondary out. Not just questionable, but done. Tre'Davious White is still not back. Micah Hyde is on IR, so he's missing a few more weeks. And Christian Benford, the rookie, is not playing either. He's had surgery on a thumb injury or a hand injury, something like that. So what's fascinating is that as much as they lost the game and they gave up some, the backup secondary essentially did a pretty good job against Miami, particularly when you consider Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and what that offense has been doing so far. It's actually bizarre how sort of personnel proof this Buffalo defense is. They can lose a lot of players and have no real visible evidence of the downturn in personnel and talent.
They have done a great job.
So they're facing Baltimore. Obviously, the Ravens have a unique offense, the Lamar Jackson thing. Lamar Jackson's only making himself money so far this season in terms of his contract negotiation. The last time Baltimore faced Buffalo was back in 2020, right, in the playoffs, where Lamar had 190 total yards. So, okay, they don't have the same personnel, either team, but if this well-coached, well-schemed Buffalo defensive unit can put a lid on Lamar Jackson, where they're weakest is the area that Baltimore doesn't really love attacking, in terms of wide receivers out wide. I actually kind of like Buffalo's ability to slow down Baltimore and put a cap on that. And then the whole game comes down to what can the Ravens defense do against Josh Allen. And I'm saying they can't slow him down enough. So I'm going to take Buffalo.
You're going to take Buffalo. I was gonna pose the question, if last week didn't happen, if Buffalo didn't lose last week, we didn't know that game happened.
But I even think,
how would you feel about Buffalo? Because we thought a week ago, we were they're a juggernaut. Everything that they're doing, 4-man rush and still pressuring, playing nickel and still not giving it up against the run. They're just,
to me,
winning the cheat code
even
so far.
Though they lost, they came out of that game with an enhanced reputation, not a diminished one. Yeah. I think both teams emerged from that game with more credit than they went into it with.
I'm interested
Miami, obviously, for winning, and Buffalo for actually getting as close as they did despite everything that was going against them.
I'm interested in this Buffalo pass rush, which they have a pass rush grade over 90. The only other team over 80 in the NFL is the Dallas Cowboys by our team pass rush grades. Boogie Basham at 93, Gregory Rousseau at 89, Von Miller at 89. But it's not just about winning blocks, it's about containing Lamar as well. I want to see how they play that, because you can't just get upfield. You got to play contain. Not that he's a big-time scrambler, but game on the line, Lamar's going to have the ball in his hands. So it's a matchup to watch there. I think I like Baltimore here, man. I think Buffalo's too banged up for this back-to-back. And if we're using the Miami's beat up from last week, Buffalo still has to be kind of beat up a little bit too.
It won't be as hot.
Presumably. Give me Baltimore. The Week 4 MVP hype is going to be through the roof here. Love these matchups. This is what's fun about the AFC, right? I mean, you've got Lamar versus Josh Allen. Josh Allen versus Tua. Throw Tua in the mix now. Is he in the mix? Is he in the next great young quarterback mix yet? No.
I'm just not entertaining any of this crap.
Trying to create storylines here.
Yeah. No, I'm not having it.
Big storyline guy.
Where are we going next?
One of the other awesome best games of the week. But first, the PFF NFL podcast is sponsored by Western and Southern Financial Group. While you focus on your roster moves, Western and Southern helps advance your money moves. Buying your first home? Planning to start a family? No, already have one. Wondering how to make your money grow? Yes, I am. Western and Southern's playbook of life insurance, investment, and retirement solutions helps you rest assured on game day. Team up to understand needs and address goals with a game plan built just for you. Get started at westernsouthern.com/PFF. Now,
I could make your money grow. I could double your money, but it's risky. Take it all.
Through your Robinhood app?
No. You
Doge?
take all your money and you put it on black.
Oh, man.
The roulette wheel. Now, look,
do you have a potential return number on that?
It's double your money.
Oh,
but
that's high.
But
100% return possible.
I can double your money, but the risk is it's a little bit less than 50-50.
Yeah.
Whether that'll happen.
What's it, like 45% chance? I mean, 45%?
It's whatever the number is minus the 0 and double 0.
Whatever that is.
That's way beyond my
It's under
ability
50.
to calculate.
I got one of those McAfee stories where I told a teammate to just throw it on 31. That's my number, and it worked. It was a hero for a night.
47.4% apparently is the odds.
Oh, that feels strong. To double? I mean, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I mean, we should do that with PFF revenue. Just the possibilities are endless.
So you could pitch it. I mean, he's listening right now. You pitch it.
Chris, take all of our revenue, throw it on black.
47.4%.
If that doesn't work, throw it on red. Just saying.
Okay, yeah.
Anyway, let's go. Jacksonville Jaguars at the Philadelphia Eagles. We made this one of the games of the week. 2-1 Jaguars against the 3-0 Eagles. Eagles are favored by 6.5. You and I did a PFF NFL Daily this week asking the very simple question with no overreaction. Has Trevor Lawrence...
Reasonable, level-headed question.
Reasonable level. That's what I'm trying.
Yeah.
Reasonable, level-headed question. Has Trevor Lawrence turned a corner?
Uh-huh.
The type of question that we would ask here.
Yeah.
What are other people asking around the internet here, Sam?
I believe it was the Ringer was asking, is Trevor Lawrence, was it a top, definitely top 10. Was it top 5? Is Trevor Lawrence essentially a really good quarterback right now? And the answer is no. I mean, let's settle down, people. Let's string 3 good games together first.
They were more declarative.
What did they say?
I mean, it's a headline, and then you have to add the context. It's Stephen Ruiz talking to our friend Nora on the idea that Trevor Lawrence will be a top 10 quarterback, but the statement is Trevor Lawrence will finish the season as a top 10 quarterback.
Okay.
Which is okay. I mean,
they definitely had a tweet that asked, is he a top 10 quarterback now?
Yeah, but that's what social media people do. Like, they ask a question based off the statement that's been made. And is Trevor Lawrence a top 10 quarterback here, Sam?
No, he's not.
Not yet?
Trevor Lawrence has strung 2 reasonable games together in his career.
We did have a listener point out that if you throw in Week 18, it's 3 out of 4.
Yeah.
Hey, I've been impressed with Lawrence and the Jaguars offense.
So have I. I'm just saying that you might want a sample size longer than 2 games before you determine him as a top 10 quarterback. We just had this debate about whether Kirk Cousins is in the top 10 after like 3 years of pretty good grading. And now we're asking after 2 games, is Trevor Lawrence there already?
That's because Kirk Cousins has a way of breaking things. He has a way of breaking things. Anyway, I want to we did have one of our emails that I don't think is going to end up becoming like, it could be one of our questions on a Wednesday, but it was like, hey, revisit those Jaguars moves this offseason, which I think from your perspective felt a little scattershot, like we're going to add a little bit here, a little bit there. From my perspective, I think they probably paid a premium for players, but they just added a little bit to almost every position group, and I don't think that's a bad strategy. I thought that was fine. I don't think you need like a, let's build this position group first. You have at receiver, Zay Jones and Christian Kirk playing well. You have Brandon Scherf at guard. He's been solid. You've got on the defensive side, Foyesade Olakun at linebacker playing better than he did the last couple of years. Folo Fatukasi on the defensive line. He's been solid. I mean, that's what they added this offseason, and that's a huge part of this team getting better. I'd say corner Darius Williams, 36th grade so far, not playing to his standard. But they got incrementally better at a lot of position groups this offseason. Plus Doug Peterson, new offensive system. Trevor Lawrence starts playing better, and I think that's all added up to. It's early, but it's a 2-1 start, but a much better-looking Jaguars team.
Yeah, the big thing to me is less the players that they added and more the impact that Doug Peterson and his coaching staff can have over the guys that they've drafted over the last few years and hadn't done anything yet, or hadn't done enough to become the players that they were supposed to be. And if we're giving – everybody's been focused on Doug Peterson plus Trevor Lawrence versus Urban Meyer, right? But actually that goes way deeper than that. What if the coaching staff can get the best out of Josh Allen, the other Josh Allen? Unless he's facing the Josh Allen, in which case he becomes the Josh
Allen, the pass rusher?
Yeah. Who currently has an overall PFF grade of 90. He's got 16 pressures of the season, which is top 5 or something in the league. Micah Parsons leads the NFL with 19. But, like, what if this group going to get the best out of Josh Allen and a first-round pick, a guy who we loved as a pass rusher coming out, the 7th overall selection? What if he actually becomes an elite player as opposed to a pretty good pass rusher who, hadn't necessarily become that guy yet? If that happens, like that's like getting a completely different player. And even if, Trayvon Walker doesn't become a dominant force in year one, it takes him a little bit of time to get going. So I think that actually has the potential to move this team forward at least as much as the additions that they made in the offseason.
I feel like the Jags defense is becoming a must-watch group every week just because of the athleticism and because I am just utterly fascinated by Trayvon Walker and his development generally.
Devin Lloyd, Rookie of the Month.
Devin Lloyd gets Rookie of the Month.
Despite playing like crap in week 1.
Yeah, but he's 78 overall grade. He's still playing. I mean, his
month
was
good.
Week 2 and
week 3 were amazing, but week 1 was bad.
His month was fantastic. He's got 4 pass breakups in his 3 games. So Josh Allen, Devin Lloyd, Trayvon Walker. Even last year, he was top of the second-round pick. Tyson Campbell playing well at corner. I love this Jags defense. I love what they're bringing to the table. But going up against Philly, they're just cooking offensively. They are pulling the right strings. They're creating open throws. When they're not creating open throws, A.J. Brown's mossing cornerbacks. Devontae Smith is mossing cornerbacks. Yes. I mean, there's for the 1,000th time, if you're playing the drinking game, multiple ways to win. And the Eagles are showing multiple ways to win, both offensively and defensively.
I'm curious if the Eagles' defensive front can do the same thing this week that they did to Washington, which is just lay waste to what was in front of them. They absolutely destroyed the Washington offensive line. And yet for the season, they're only 10th in pressure rate. Like, it's not, that hasn't been every week. The Eagles just show up and every single guy up front is winning as almost every single play. That was, I don't know, for some reason they just showed up in abundance against Washington. Okay, the Commanders were down.
What happens there? But you get, like, Carson Wentz has a really high
Well, he didn't help, yeah. But they
pressure
also,
to sack rate.
They were down interior players as well. It's not it's not the line that they want to start every single week. But Jacksonville's offensive line isn't great. It's moving in the right direction, I think, but it has weaknesses. So it's the kind of line that they could do that against. We just haven't seen it every single week. And that changes everything. So I was sort of looking through Justin Jefferson tape. You're like, obviously he had that incredible week 1. I'm like, well, where did he go week 2 and 3? What were those teams doing to take away Justin Jefferson? And certainly against Philadelphia, you turn on the tape, it's like, honestly, not that much. Like, everyone's going to say, Darius Slay shut him down, which is only partially true, but there was a ton of off-target passes, not because of anything that was happening with Darius Slay and Justin Jefferson, but because Kirk Cousins was about to be destroyed by the Philadelphia pass rush, and he was just heaving the ball somewhere. Like anywhere, Justin Jefferson's over there somewhere. Throw it. Right?
By the way, Darius Slay's going to be all-pro this year because of that game alone.
Probably.
Because prime time and Cousins kept throwing to him.
And I'm not saying that he was bad or anything. I'm just saying that, there was a lot more to that game than Darius Slay owned Justin Jefferson. Therefore, that matchup was Philadelphia's way. It was like Kirk Cousins was under pressure for almost all of those Jefferson targets and was not accurate with the ball because of it.
Well, if you ask the average fan, who's the best corner on the Eagles, they're saying Darius Slay. I saw that on Monday Night Football. What if I told you James Bradbury on the other side, a guy that we said, man, what a good fit, what a great signing after the Giants had to cut him because of cap purposes, get him for pennies on the dollar after the draft. James Bradbury and Darius Slay have the same exact coverage grade, 76.9. Darius Slay has allowed a passer rating of 29.3 into his coverage. Bradbury is at 30.5. Both of those better off spiking the ball, right?
Yes.
There you go. Bradbury's got an extra pass breakup, and he's only given up 9 catches on 21 targets. So that's 43% into his coverage, Bradbury, and only 6.6 yards per reception. Again, Steve repeats himself again. The first 6 or 7 games last year when the Eagles defense they were trotting out the softest zones I think I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And almost every quarterback was completing 80% of their passes and all this stuff. And you have 2 corners now allowing 43% or lower. They have started to hit this stride of the pass rush is getting home. They're calculating blitzes properly, and they're making life difficult on quarterbacks. So the Eagles' defense has been absolutely fantastic.
Their defense has been legit. It really has. And like I said, it's the combination of getting a ton of pressure with that front 4, or sort of front 7, but rotating just 4 guys, and then the back end being able to hold up with both Darius Slay and James Bradbury. Like, this is a really, really good defense, and the defense is not their most impressive unit so far this season. Like, the offense and everything they're doing. Did you see that play, by the way, the Dallas Goedert glitch in the Matrix thing, where it was like a tight end screen. He catches and starts running, and then just like glitches to the side out of a tackle.
I saw most of that play. I don't remember that specifically, though.
Yeah, it didn't. So the sideline TV view, it doesn't make any sense how this happens. Like, there's a safety coming in, barreling straight at him, and he just like glitches to the side, and it's like, what the hell? How did that not? It didn't even slow him down, let alone tackle him. When you watch the end zone view, he got bumped by an offensive lineman who was like either the lineman or the blocker. As he was running, he got bumped as he was sort of in midair, which literally like blasted him a yard to the side. And then the safety running in with a terrible attempt at a tackle, to be fair, just found that he wasn't there anymore because he'd been like 300 pounds of human. And just
I'd be so mad at Madden. I would be so mad at Madden if that happened.
Yeah.
I mean, how much to the Eagles, they miss on Jalen Reagor, but like just keep attacking that position. Going with Devontae Smith the next year, still trading for A.J. Brown.
Yes.
And then Dallas Goedert is one of the better receiving tight ends. And now when you add that all up, it's like, all right, cover this. Plus you got Hurts as a runner and the running backs and the O-line. I mean, that's I'm going Philly to cover the 6.5.
I hate it, but I think I am as well. That 6.5 is a big number for a team like Jacksonville that's actually playing pretty well.
I've been a Jaguars believer. But this also feels like one where it's like Trevor throws a couple to the defense, trying to make a comeback and all that. You know?
I mean, this is the best defense that this Jacksonville team has gone up against so far this season.
Yeah,
like they've Washington, Indianapolis. Okay, their defense seems feistier than they have any right to be, and the Chargers' defense isn't bad, but it was pretty depleted. I think this is a different level where instead of Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack might be the best duo in the NFL or one of the best, but Philadelphia's got 7 guys that can all get pressure, and they've been getting pressure. And on the back end, it's instead of like a work in progress back end like the Chargers, proven 2 quality shutdown type cornerbacks.
Looking forward to this matchup. It's going to be a fun one. All right, so we're going to have to go. So we're both taking Philly, covering the 6.5.
Yep.
We're going to have to go a little bit quicker through the rest of the games.
Well, those are the 3. We get the headline games.
We get the 3 headline games. This next one's somewhat headline. We've seen it before, though. Los Angeles Rams at the San Francisco 49ers. It's Monday Night Football. The Niners favored by 1.5 here. This was the NFC Championship last year, and it was the first time the Rams had beaten the 49ers in, 6 attempts? previously.
Can you explain why are the 49ers favorites in this game? Is it just that?
It's got to be something to the matchups.
The history.
It's much like the Saints and the Bucs. The Saints play the Bucs well, and they have
I
an
understand.
antidote to the Bucs offense, and weird stuff happens.
And I understand that the Rams don't look great this year, certainly relative to a season ago. It's not hasn't been as impressive. But still, like,
the Niners always seem to have answers. Anyway, the Niners always seem to have answers for the Rams defense, which not a lot of teams do. Let's just remember too, there's always Stafford. There's Stafford stands and there's Stafford detractors. I still see some of the detractors saying, man, if Jaquiski Tart just catches that heave that he threw last year in the NFC Championship, the Stafford narrative completely changes, right? He blew it in the NFC Championship.
And not just that, but the Bucs had one in the end zone early in that game as well. He threw at least one to the defense every game in the playoffs.
And that's fine. I am team volatile Stafford, that, that stuff happens, but he had way more good than bad. But I think it's easy to just look back and say, well, again, the Rams won the Super Bowl, therefore everything was great and they're just a better team and all that stuff. But when you look back at every team's Super Bowl run, there were ebbs and flows. There were times where it looked bleak, right? So the Rams aren't this more dominant team than the 49ers. Now, that's what I'm coming at with. Like, here's why the Niners are favored. There's history there. The Rams, yes, they won the Super Bowl, but you're a handful of plays going the other way, so it's not like the Rams are this, juggernaut that the Niners can't compete with. All that said, last week the Niners lost 11-10, and Jimmy G ran out of the end zone unpressured. So the Niners offense has some question marks right now.
Look, it's easily
they couldn't
done.
move the ball.
It's easily done. It's a short area. It's only 10 yards, Anyway,
I just need Dan O's people to get back. Like, let us talk to Dan. Let us talk to Dan O. Orlovsky.
What?
We tried to talk to his people last year. Like, oh, he's too busy.
Did we?
Yeah.
Oh.
Let's get him. We need to get him on the show.
I'm sure Dan would do it.
Just DM him.
I don't know if he follows me.
I'll unmute him and I'll DM him. I'm sorry. Did I say that out loud? Sometimes I just didn't want to see his takes for a while.
You're out here. You're wearing, Florida stuff to the Miami booster.
Yeah, bring on the guy that I'm going to unmute.
Now you're telling me.
I want to invite Wade Phillips on the show, too, because he's blocked you.
Dan doesn't follow me. I'm out here partially responsible for people discovering Dan Orlovsky on Twitter.
I'm sure his DMs are open.
The man doesn't even follow me.
I'm sure his DMs are open, and he'll definitely see yours at the top.
We'd have to go through Mina. That would be the way in.
I think we did, and she was like, yeah, talk to the PR guy. She gave us to the PR guy.
I can't handle PR.
Mina's just fork over his number. Just fork over his number. I want Dano on this show, and I want to know the mechanics of running out of the end zone.
Oh, I think it's pretty simple. You see a large man running towards you, and you just run the hell away from it.
Yeah, I might do that,
and
too.
it's only afterwards it occurs to you that you ran out of the dimensions of the field.
All right, what are you looking for in this game? Rams at 49ers.
So, I mean, look, I take your point that this wasn't a dramatically different set of teams last year just because the Rams won the Super Bowl and the 49ers didn't. But the Rams were better last year.
They were.
And they're still better. And they have a better quarterback. And that holds true whether or not you factor in Matthew Stafford heaving the ball to the defense every now and again, which is a fairly regular occurrence for Matthew Stafford. It's also a fairly regular occurrence for Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, these are not dramatic. These are not reasons why the 49ers would be favorites in this game. In addition to that, the 49ers have done a good job limiting the damage that Aaron Donald can do to their offense generally. But this is also the weakest offensive line that they fielded in a long time. The interior, in particular, is not good. They're now down a left tackle, Trent Williams, the best left tackle, in fact, in the NFL, arguably. So Donald has a much greater capacity in this game to wreck house than he has normally against the 49ers. So I don't know. It feels to me like this is a game where the Rams should be reasonable favorites.
Reiterating last week, Stafford had over 70% of his yards after the catch. There was a drop in the end zone by Cooper Kupp that would have offset that, but it was an underneath passing attack for the Rams last week and a safe passing attack with Stafford. He wasn't throwing the ball to the defense this time around. I feel like they need that game, right? You need that safer game. But the Niners, man, they're flying around defensively. They're playing Much better. Remember there was a point, there was like a disconnect, I think, last year with the 49ers' actual performance defensively and then the reality. EPA per play on 10-plus yard throws, they were among the worst in the league. There were points in the season where they got better. I think this year's team is better, though. This is a much better 49ers defense. I think we're looking at a low-scoring game here, like the 11-10 last week.
There are some really low over-unders this week. Actually, not just this week, but generally this season. Like, I've seen the over-under drop below 40 a bunch of times. And in today's NFL, that just always feels too low.
You know what's interesting is, so a lot of times you have September and offense is up and you don't really have a whole lot of bad weather games, and offense is better in September than it is in December, January. And this year, I feel like my prediction from a few years ago, before we knew Josh Allen was a star, before we knew Lamar Jackson would break out, I feel like that one, which is there's no clear-cut top quarterbacks. So therefore, every year that's going to be this like shuffle them up, who knows who comes out on top type of deal. It's not exactly that, but it kind of feels like that, right? Because you got Brady and Rodgers. Rodgers had one bad game in there, and Brady doesn't have his guys, and Mahomes has been a little up and down, even if the results are good. Like, you just don't have anybody dominating right now. Offense is down. Is my point. Yeah. I don't know what I like in this one. You're so right about you always start with Donald when you're looking at the Rams, right? You always start there.
Yeah.
And look at the matchups that he has there.
And I agree that they've done a good job generally of slowing down Aaron Donald and making sure that he isn't the kind of factor in the game that you think he should be. But I think that's going to be harder this time with the interior group that they have now versus the one that they've had in previous years. You know, they've lost players, and that interior was already looking like a weakness. Now they're down their left tackle as well, who was their best graded offensive lineman. Like, this is not the usual 49ers offensive line.
Yeah, give me the Rams. Give me the Rams getting points here.
Same.
Does the history matter? Does the history matter minus the NFC Championship?
No. I think if they'd won the championship as well, I would have been pretty hard to ignore. You know, like, we're now 6 in a row and the better team keeps losing. This doesn't make any sense to me. The fact they finally got the monkey off the back and they're like, all right, snapped. You know, I don't make a distinction essentially between the regular season and postseason in terms of streaks like this. The fact that they snapped the streak and we showed, all right, there is at least no complete jinx or some sort of like schematic kryptonite that Kyle Shanahan has over Sean McVay. We've proven at last that McVay can win. Therefore, I'm no longer interested that it's a large run in his favor.
All I know is I'm looking at the PFF app right now, and the PFF app doesn't like any of the bets in this game whatsoever. You should check out the PFF app as well. You got all of our smart bets. We got little, like, I see an A bet right there that is tempting, but there's a lot of like D's and F's, right? If there's no real
doesn't
edge,
love a lot this week.
Yeah, if there's no real edge, it's just going to say, hey, don't touch this.
Yep.
This is one of those games PFF app is saying, don't touch this. Niners are favored by 1.5 right now at home. Monday Night Football. Over/under's 43. You're right. It's not that high. Not that high. But I'll take the Rams to cover that.
Same.
All right. Washington Commanders at the Dallas Cowboys. What are we calling this one?
The Ginger Bowl.
The Ginger Bowl. There's a wrench thrown into the Ginger Bowl plans here. Is the Red Rifle, Andy Dalton, old friend here, might be making the start in London to start the day.
Well, the good news is we'll know whether or not that's been a problem by the time this game starts.
Like, if Andy Dalton goes off at 9:30 a.m. Eastern, what does this Commanders Cowboys look? There's no more ginger talent to go around.
If he goes, if Andy Dalton balls out at 9 a.m. in London, hammer the unders in this game.
Yes,
like nobody's scoring any points.
That is how you acknowledge the.
And look, I'm not going to lie.
The
PFF app might not indicate that. This is one that you're going to know only from listening to this podcast.
There's no way I don't think ginger theory is baked into the algorithm.
I don't think it is.
No.
So, when you're firing up your bets, you're firing up the app on Sunday morning, trying to figure out where you're going to put your money. If Andy Dalton's gone off for like 6 touchdowns, looked like a dominant force, it might not be clear, from the app. They might not have an A grade next to it. But from listening to this podcast, nail the under.
So it's Carson Wentz versus Cooper Rush. That's why we're having our fun with that. Carson Wentz has been sacked 15 times this year. That's tied, right? Yeah, tied for the league lead with Joe Burrow. So if we're going to talk about Joe Burrow's offensive line or him getting sacked all the time, we have to do the same thing with Wentz. 28% of his pressured dropbacks. That's also one of the worst rates in the league. And you have Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence on the other side for the Cowboys. What do we have? 3.5? Cowboys by 3.5 here at home. What are you looking for in this one?
I mean, Micah Parsons has reached that level where that's your starting point. It's like the Aaron Donald thing. It's only 3 now, by the way.
Down to 3. Let's update that.
I know. I keep checking for each one of these games.
Thank you.
Micah Parsons has reached that Aaron Donald level where that's my starting point for every single game. How are you going to address Micah Parsons lining up, and how are you going to stop that? Because so far nobody has. He leads the NFL in pressures. He's got 19 of them. We are starting to see. I'm not just starting to see. He's a true full-time edge rusher. They've sacked off any notion of Micah Parsons, being an off-the-ball linebacker. It's just not happening now, and people were saying, maybe that's a reflection of the opposition. He's still lining up in the box sometimes, but we are talking about a pure pass rusher at this point, and maybe the best one in the league outside of Aaron Donald. So Washington, we saw last week what happens to that offensive line when they're overmatched. They got destroyed. They don't have anybody on that line that can block Micah Parsons one-on-one, so you're going to need to do it from a schematic point of view. And Dallas doesn't make it easy for you because they'll move him around. They won't line him up the same spot every single time. So whatever your solution is in terms of chip blocks, in terms of help by a lineman, in terms of, passing quickly, you have to do it factoring in the fact that he's going to move around the place.
Interestingly enough, all that said, Washington's actual pass blocking grades for the offensive line, not terrible. Like I said, it's when they give it up, they're becoming sacks, right? They're becoming negative plays. You also have some rough pass blocking grades from, say, running backs and tight ends in there and everything. It's the unit as a whole. But Carson Wentz, he's got to do a better job. He's got to do a better job there, avoiding those negative plays. And it's another one of those games where I think, relying on those receivers on the outside earlier, right? It feels like Wentz, when it gets to not complete garbage time, but when it gets like Jacksonville, they started to fall behind. He starts throwing the ball down the field a little bit more. Got to start taking those chances a little bit earlier, I'd say. The other piece of the offensive line for Washington, as of yesterday, Charles Leno, Samuel Cosme, both tackles are questionable. But I don't know what to make of these. Wes Schweitzer, he's been filling in at center, right, for Chase Roulier. Mm-hmm. He's also questionable with a concussion. He did not practice Wednesday. So we could be looking at some backups. If one of those tackles doesn't play, you have Parsons and Lawrence. I really think DeMarcus Lawrence is one of those guys. He's going to be the key here. We're going to come out of this season looking at DeMarcus Lawrence, he's been criticized for sack totals fluctuating through the years. And I feel like we've always defended him and say, hey, the pass rushing grade is there. It's there. It's there every single year. But his sack totals, 15, 13, 6, 7, 3. Pass rushing grade has been pretty good, consistent the whole way. DeMarcus Lawrence is going to have 20 sacks this year.
20?
Yeah. He's got 3. He could have a 50. I'm not saying that definitively. DeMarcus Lawrence can have a 15 to 20 sack season this year because of the attention Micah Parsons starts to draw.
Yeah, I mean,
it's at that level right now.
He's already tied what he had last year on less than half the snaps and way less than half the pass rushes. So I think, the point, he can have a huge season based off what happens if you suddenly get none of the attention,
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable point to make, that he'll definitely clean up because everybody's focusing on Micah Parsons.
All that said, he's also questionable as well, DeMarcus Lawrence.
Yeah, there's a lot of people.
Everybody I talk about is questionable, so take it all with a grain of salt. Questionable can be anything. It's
right.
50-50.
We've reached the point in the season now where just everybody is questionable.
That point of the season is supposed to be week 11.
Yeah, by the way, Justin Herbert, who's actually got something wrong with him and is not showing up in the injury report, weirdly.
Well, that sounds like the Chargers might need to fork over a draft pick at some point.
I mean, I assume they're not. I assume
Are you
whatever
saying the cartilage is melded back together?
I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't quite understand how a guy with broken rib cartilage doesn't show up in the injury report, but that appears to be the case. It's not like they can think they're getting away with it. Everyone saw it happen, like on national TV. So anyway.
By the way, the Bucs, the Sunday night game, Bucs and Chiefs will remain in Tampa Bay as of now.
Okay.
That's all the news happening right now. Cooper Rush, 3 for 3 in game-winning drives / fourth quarter comebacks in his career.
Now he is on the injury report. Never mind.
Oh, I wish you weren't a liar.
I have fact-checked myself.
I'd rather work with someone who didn't lie to me.
I mean, what if I lie and then recant it within 30 seconds?
It's admirable.
Okay. It's like the 5-second rule with food on the floor. If I can take it back after 30 seconds, it's fine.
Okay, that's good then. Michael Gallup supposed to be back for the Dallas Cowboys too. We'll kind of see how they add him to the mix. Noah Brown has been excellent the last 2 weeks. I am really curious about Noah Brown. If that is just a Cooper Rush, couple backups that have been in Dallas for a few years type of connection. You know how that happens sometimes? They've been practicing together for years. Or if Noah Brown can actually be that true number 3 behind CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup. And then you have CeeDee Lamb had that weird game the other night, right? He's open deep, drops it, and then he makes the spectacular one-handed catch. He's still awesome. I'm liking Dallas in this one. Their defense, their pass rush, Wentz holding the ball, and Cooper Rush keeping it going.
Yeah, the Dallas pass rush against Washington's offensive line is what's swaying it for me. I don't like betting into a Cooper Rush-led Dallas offense. I think Washington is better than they've shown, so I also think there's mileage to be betting into them. But that matchup specifically scares me.
Minnesota Vikings at the New Orleans Saints. This is your London game, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. It's really New Orleans by 3?
It was. Let me check it now.
Check it out. New Orleans by 3. Is that true? Pulling up green line here as well. It seems like Jameis Winston might not be going.
It's Minnesota by 2.5.
Okay, so you just lied again.
I'm reasonably certain I didn't.
This is the second week in a row you had Minnesota's line completely off.
I'm reasonably certain I didn't do that. But
that's
okay.
fine. I'm not blaming you.
Fine.
So Minnesota by 2.5, which makes a little bit more sense. They feel like they're a better team at this point.
It's in London. Nothing makes sense.
Oh, that's true.
Also, but no, that makes sense because it swung because the Red Rifle's about to start.
You're telling Jameis Winston's not worth 5.5.
That's what I'm telling you.
Stop it.
I don't think I screwed that up. I believe that the Red Rifle news has swung that line. I'm sticking with that.
I think Andy Dalton, the way I think he'll. I hate saying this.
Mm-hmm. Speak. What do you got?
He's going to make this offense look better.
Wow.
Than Jameis has to this point.
Wow.
Jameis is officially questionable. Offensive coordinator Pete Carmichael confirmed that Winston, back, ankle, hip, all 3 things. He didn't participate in Thursday's practice, but he's hopeful the quarterback will be on the field Friday.
I've fact-checked myself again. You want this one?
Yeah.
So the line has moved significantly with the Red Rifle news, but it doesn't appear to explain where I got my number, which doesn't connect to anything. So I don't know. Again, reasonably certain I didn't screw that up, but my number doesn't match the line at any point.
So everybody's wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So Pete Carmichael says Jameis Winston, he's hopeful the quarterback will be on the field Friday. He didn't say which part of the field. Could be the sideline. Could be the actual playing field.
I don't think that counts as the field, does it?
It's a field.
No.
Yeah, if you have like a field pass, you're standing on the turf. Outside the white lines, but you're standing on the turf. I think this is a shrewd way of saying, look, it's Andy Dalton's team right now, but Jameis is going to be wearing a headset, eating those dubs. You know what I mean? That's what they want him doing.
Yeah. On
the sideline. I would say if you had Michael Thomas out there and Chris Olave and Jarvis Landry, I was going to make the point. I could see Andy Dalton, the distributor, doing a nice job with this offense.
Yeah.
I could see that happening. Andy Dalton hasn't had this type of supporting cast since 2015 with the Cincinnati Bengals.
Didn't he have it when he played for Dallas briefly and looked like garbage before he got hurt?
Okay, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. I probably made the same prediction back then, too.
I believe we did.
Yeah.
I don't think it worked out well.
I was definitely wrong back then. But I could see Andy Dalton this time around if he had all those players. Problem is, I'm not going to read their questionable list, too, but it's every starter. Alvin Kamara, Jarvis Landry, Michael Thomas, Traquan Smith. I mean, is the NFL just calling everybody questionable?
Yeah.
Paulson Adebo.
Dalvin Cook's
even Taysom Hill.
Dalvin Cook's questionable with his Riggs shoulder. You're going to have to blast it in on the goalpost before he starts up.
I mean, if it's in, he's playing, right?
Well, I think he needs to hit. He needs to knock it in with the goalpost, and then he needs to harness it up so it doesn't pop out again.
What are you looking for in this game?
I want to see how the Saints defend Justin Jefferson. I talked about this a little bit before. I don't think Detroit or Philadelphia did anything particularly creative to stop him. Overall, I don't think that was, it wasn't a dramatic shift from what we saw against Green Bay. It was more against Philadelphia. The pass rush was getting there. There were a couple of weird plays in there as well. Like the first one, I think his first target was a pass breakup from Darius Slay, which was definitely pass interference. Like he had one arm hooked and wasn't letting Jefferson get there. Didn't get called. There was another one late, the Darius Slay interception, where for some reason Jefferson just didn't cross his face and just left him, so it was
that was not on him. That was not on Cousins.
No, I mean he's running like a deep post against a corner and off coverage. That should be a easy money for a receiver and a quarterback. Cousins puts it where it's supposed to be, and for some reason, Darius Slay anticipated it well and got himself in the way, but once he was blocking Jefferson's path, Jefferson just bailed on it essentially and gave up, at which point Slay's now standing there to intercept the pass. So I think there's a degree to which this Vikings offense and the plays and the route concepts are a little bit too predictable. There's definitely evidence from those two games that corners knew what was coming, and were ready to make those plays. But I don't think anybody's doing anything spectacular to take that away. So how does New Orleans line up to try and stop it? Do they just put Marshawn Lattimore on them all game? Or do they just line up with a regular defense and say, you know what, your great player isn't functioning as well because the rest of your offense isn't firing?
All right, we know Kirk Cousins struggles on primetime, right? We know that night games and the whole thing just doesn't mesh well with him.
Do we actually know that, or were you just running with the narrative?
We're running with the narrative.
Okay.
How do we feel about morning games, though? Do you think it's going to have the opposite effect? Because we know, 1 o'clock's this nice, safe time, but we're talking 9:30 Eastern. And, Kirk's he's a morning guy. He's up at 6 with the kids and the whole thing. What if he goes off because it's 9:30? It has the opposite effect of primetime Kirk.
Yeah.
This is the analysis I'm bringing to the table here.
It's impressive. It's entirely possible. There was a video on NFL's YouTube channel with Steve Smith, friend of the show. Steve was investigating the sort of nutritional stuff going on with the Vikings. And Kirk Cousins wanders in and proceeds to tell him about, he'd taken lessons from some list that Steve Smith wrote years ago about how to extend your time in the NFL, how to, maintain everything. And Kirk was essentially running through all the things that he doesn't eat, try to be dairy free, try to be nut free, try to be, it was like nightshade free or something like that, which to him is potatoes or anyway. The man doesn't eat an awful lot. You know what I mean? We're a salad man only, which I think tallies perfectly with the Kirk Cousins, the general ambiance of Kirk Cousins, right? Business handshakes, salads. This is Kirk Cousins. So yeah, a balling at 9 a.m. Eastern makes a lot of sense. I'm up at that time anyway. I've walked the dog. I've had a nutritious breakfast. I've got the kids ready.
So you're bringing some data points to back me up here.
I wouldn't go that far. I'm finding a ridiculous video that would appear to tally with what you're trying to say.
So Minnesota, definitely. New Orleans still has a very good defense. I can't figure out the Saints offense, which is why a part of me wants to think, well, it's going to look different just because they're just mixing it up here with Dalton. It's just going to look different. Like Winston.
You think the shock value of the red rifle is going to...
they've just been so inept in the first half, and then 2 out of 3 games in the second half, they at least showed signs of life in New Orleans. The other one was against the Bucs, and Jameis kept throwing the ball to defense and missing throws. I don't know. I think Dalton's going to play better.
Can we give some love to James Hurst, by the way?
Yes, do it.
James Hurst wasn't even supposed to be a starter for the Saints, but Trevor Penning gets hurt in preseason.
Left tackle injury.
Yeah, and so James Hurst has had to fill in as a starting left tackle, and in 3 games he's given up 3 pressures. He's got a pass blocking grade of at least 78 in every single game, and that's now a reasonably extensive period of grading for James Hurst, where he's been good. I remember saying, I think it was before they drafted Trevor Penning, when all the talk was, the moves that they've made to get 2 first-round picks because they're going to get a wide receiver and a left tackle. I do remember thinking at the time, I wouldn't hate giving Hurst a shot for a year, until you figure out something. Like, instead of trading back into the first round to get another first-round pick because you need 2 positions right now, maybe keep your first-round pick next year and just get the left tackle then, give James Hurst the shot for a year. I don't think that will go badly. And
look at him backing you up, too.
Yeah, I wouldn't be in a rush to get James Hurst out of the starting lineup.
All right, so who are you picking in this one? Minnesota at New Orleans.
I'm buying into your Kirk Cousins 9 a.m. narrative. Minnesota.
My 2 narratives are fighting here. I've got 9 a.m. Kirk against Red Rifle stealing the ginger theory.
But he's up against 2 other gingers over the weekend. Now, admittedly, he gets first crack at it. But
yeah, that's what's throwing me off.
Yeah.
I'll take Minnesota. Kirk, breakfast Kirk, better than primetime Kirk.
Breakfast Kirk.
Yes, can't mess with breakfast Kirk. I kind of hope he goes off so this becomes a thing. Like the Vikings start lobbying the NFL
for every
games.
London game.
Yeah. We'll take it. We'll take
all of them.
Yeah,
they'll the deal that the Jags have. Nobody's at our games anyway.
We'll be the silly nannies.
Right.
We'll take it.
We'll take London because nobody's showing up to our home games.
Tennessee Titans at the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts are favored by 3.5. Ooh, 3.5 for the Colts. Do you feel good about the Colts after they beat the Chiefs?
I don't feel good about anybody in that division.
1-1-1. The Colts against the 1-2 Tennessee Titans.
Yeah.
AFC South heavyweight battle here. Both teams, I don't want to say they saved their season, but they saved potential disaster last week. And the winner could be in first place at the end of the day here.
Yeah.
If the Jaguars lose to the heavily favored Eagles.
This is a kind of interesting one when you think that, Tennessee was the number 1 seed last year. They obviously won the division. Over the course of the offseason, the confidence level, the Vegas odds swung in the direction of Indianapolis. It was like, hey, the Colts did a better job in the offseason than the Titans. They've overtaken them in the division. The Matt Ryan thing, everything else that happened. So they started off the season, I think, as favorites. And then over the course of the first few weeks, they've both looked pretty bad. And off the back of last week, factoring in where this game is in Indianapolis, the Colts are 3.5-point favorites. For me, and I was with Vegas in terms of I thought Indianapolis had jumped the Titans over the course of the offseason. I thought they should have been favorites of the division going into the year. I am more confident in Tennessee after 3 games than I am for Indianapolis. Even though I'm less confident for both of them. Both of them have gone backwards in my estimation. But I'm more confident in the Titans than I am with the Colts.
Really?
Yeah.
More confident in the Titans.
Yeah. So they at least have shown that their skill position players are still good, which is a pretty big starting point. Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry, the Robert Woods has started to show life after his injury. Treylon Burks is not exactly.
We just got Michael Pittman back last week. He made some big plays for the Colts.
One.
And there's one other big one.
Jonathan Taylor.
Jelani Woods.
Jelani Woods.
You see the Jonathan Taylor stat about missing practice?
His first missed practice ever. Yeah.
Pretty impressive.
It is. Kind of pointless, but very impressive that a running back has never missed a practice.
Just a nice nugget.
Yeah. He dating back in his career, high school, college, and now the NFL. This is his first missed practice. I wonder if he knew that.
Oh, he knows.
Yeah? Because that would if
that's a person who has perfect attendance in school knows that he has perfect attendance.
Yeah, I never did, so I didn't know that
neither.
ever.
I was always like, you need a few days off in there, Get sick once or twice a year, a couple days off. Get in a late baseball game, you got to miss the next day. I'm a 7 or 8 day off type of guy.
Okay.
At school.
Yeah.
Never strove to be that perfect attendance person, but I knew those people. They're like, I never miss a day.
Yeah.
And then you have the person that's sick every other week.
You get those people of I haven't taken a day off work in 27 years. Really?
Yeah, idiots.
Why?
Stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Take a break, man.
Yeah. So there's one thing to be I strive to be at work whenever I can. But there's also a thing of in 27 years, there are definitely days where you should not have been at work.
That's outside of vacations, people are bragging. They still take vacations, right?
I don't know.
They just didn't have sick days.
I don't know. But either way, there are days in that many years where you absolutely should not have been there. You know what I mean? And you still have showed up.
PFF Ben Stockwell over here bragging about he hasn't missed a work day since PFF started in 2008.
Yeah.
And if he does, the whole thing falls apart.
That's what I'm saying. Like, he should have taken a day off somewhere along the line.
Yeah, Ben, take a day off. Like, not today because we need you. Games tonight, but take a day off one time.
I think today he'd probably take off, just not tomorrow.
What if he just leaves? He's like, you're right, going on sabbatical.
I'm out.
Yeah. If Ben goes on sabbatical, PFF doesn't exist.
Unlimited PTO. I'm gone. See you in June.
We do have unlimited PTO. What a perk we got here.
What was the question?
I don't know. Titans and Colts.
Yeah.
I'm at that point in the show, Sam, where we're just going to.
As I said, I'm more confident in Tennessee than Indianapolis. You think that's madness?
No, neither team's impressed me. Really,
yeah, well, as I say, they both went backwards, but I'm more confident by them.
I think the Colts should look better, though. I still don't know what to make of Matt Ryan. He's got this interesting mix of made a few big throws last week, but at the same time, any kind of blitz protection and all that stuff isn't always on the offensive line, right? The narrative this entire offseason was like, oh my gosh, Matt Ryan is like the smartest quarterback we've ever been around. He knows everything. He's changing the offense. Well, he couldn't even pick up a blitz last week with his offensive line. They couldn't even communicate and pick up an overload blitz against the Chiefs. And I worry about that against this Titans defense, the way they like to play. So I don't know if I'm with you that like, hey, I feel better about the Titans. I gotta learn more about Matt Ryan. If he's, not cliff worthy, but if he's losing it here.
I want to reiterate and be clear. I don't feel good about either of them. Just saying more good about Tennessee than the Colts.
Better?
Yeah. They're both not good, but the Colts or the Titans are less not good than the Colts.
Beautiful. I'll take the Titans this week with you.
What do we say? Yeah, definitely. Tennessee.
I think the Titans schemed up pass rush against the Colts. And I know Matt Ryan hit some plays against the blitz and all that stuff last week. The schemed up pass rush from the Titans against the Colts is the difference in this one. And, Chris Jones probably won't trash talk to prolong the game-winning drive this week.
Probably not.
Colts, yeah.
Certainly not in this game.
Halfway through. We got a half hour to go. 45 minutes. We got this. Denver Broncos at the Las Vegas Raiders. Raiders favored by 2.5 here. Raiders, the 0-3 Raiders are favored by 2.5,
which is another
according
one.
to this document.
I checked. This was another one that was weird enough that I was like, really? The Raiders are favored by 2.5?
According to whatever you copied over.
The
but
0-3 Raiders.
I guess it's real.
Are favored by 2.5 against the 2-1 Denver Broncos.
I need to put out my power rankings, by the way. My power rankings are going to be
piss so many
3-0. I'm going to do it later. I'm just going to put the standings.
No,
I'm just going to put the standings.
Your power rank, it would piss more people off if you didn't. If you actually went Denver, like the Bears 2-1, they suck, so they're not ranked.
Bears are probably 12th in the league.
My entire Twitter stream right now is just people writing 2-1 in response to a Justin Fields stat. It's like they refuse to acknowledge that everything is not rosy because they've won 2 games.
I am always fascinated by fan bases who are like they're either really optimistic or really pessimistic.
Yeah.
I feel like, the Bears are the optimistic,
Not always. I mean, it's just,
They are. Like, they were, Trubisky was the next big thing 4 years ago.
No, they just, every year you stake out, you put your line and you say, this is where I am. I am this. I am defending this standpoint.
I got you. Okay.
And I don't care what happens. So you start off, it's like, no, actually, Trubisky's way better than you think. And then it's like, Matt Nagy needs to be shot because he's destroying everything about the Bears.
Right.
And then this year, it's like, no.
Matt Nagy kicks babies and the whole thing.
Right. Yeah. We're 2-1. Justin Fields is fine. Don't worry about it, even though he's got 297 passing yards in 3 games, which is like a historically wretched outcome.
Okay. So where are we going in this one? Vegas by 2.5.
God, that's a lot. I mean, it's not even a lot. It's just them being favored over anybody right now.
Broncos are 2-0 the last 2 weeks by scoring 23 points.
This is another one where I don't feel good about either of these two teams. But I think you probably have to feel slightly better about the Broncos and the Raiders, right? Like, both offenses are underachieving to an incredible degree. I don't understand. You talk about sometimes the whole being worth more than the sum of its parts, Yeah. The Raiders' whole is worth so much less than the sum of its parts to a degree that doesn't make any sense. It's like somewhere in the middle, there's like a giant, somewhere in that equation, all the talent is leaking out, and the end is not justifying the collection of players that they have. Denver is a similar story, but I think for slightly different reasons. But then on the other, like, Denver actually has a good defense. The Raiders' defense isn't great. Like, I don't really understand how they're favored.
If you told me Mac Hollins was going to go off in 3 weeks, with 14 catches for 240. Is Mac Hollins right now the guy we were describing yesterday, the Travis Fulgham and all that? Like, Mac Hollins is going to be 6 weeks in a cloud of dust. He's going to be gone.
Well, maybe, but the thing that makes no sense is if you were painting that scenario for somebody, okay, 3 weeks into the season, Mac Hollins is going to have a ton of yards and catches, and he's going to look great. You would say, okay, so something like what happened to the Bucs receivers has happened, correct? Like, the Raiders are missing everybody. And the only person left is Mac Hollins, and that's why he's putting up all these numbers. But that's not – somehow he's doing that in an offense with Davante Adams and
Darren Waller
and Hunter Renfrow and Derek Carr. Like,
if you had told me
what's happening.
If you had told me that, I would have said that is exactly what the Chiefs have needed the last couple of years. The Chiefs had Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, and all they needed was like the DeMarcus Robinsons or Byron Pringles of the world to just –
but that's the other
Sammy
thing.
Watkins did once in a while, to just go off when the opportunities were given.
But that's the other thing. So the first reaction to that would be, well, that makes no sense. So everybody must be injured for that to be happening. No, that's not what's happening. Well, then my second reaction would be, oh, well, then they're doing well, because the only way that makes any sense is if teams are trying to take away everything else, and Mac Hollins is the guy that's going off because of it. Like, every week so far has been his Sammy Watkins game, when their teams are doubling Kelce and Tyreek Hill, and Sammy Watkins goes off for 180. But that's not happening either. Nothing makes sense about this. Like, the great players they have are not firing. The guys that are supposed to be bit parts of the offense are firing, and it's not working. What the hell is happening to the Raiders' offense?
I don't know. I have no answers. I mean, I was wrong about Derek Carr in this offense. I thought I had the same question marks about the offensive line that you have had. I thought Derek Carr would, I always say that you have to extract a little aggressiveness out of him. I think you would have had that with Davante Adams. After 1 week, my concern was maybe he's going to be locked in on him too much, and then he's not locked in, and he's not finding that balance of just playing football. Like, if Derek Carr just goes out and plays football, Davante Adams will get his, Darren Waller will get his. Apparently, Mac Hollins will go off every now and again, and Hunter Renfro's there on the underneath stuff. That should be a spectacular offense if they could protect half decent. It should be, and it will be. Raiders bounce back this week. I don't know. George's old axiom: I'd take the better quarterback getting points.
I don't know who that is anymore.
Is Russell Wilson the better quarterback getting points? Derek Carr has a passing grade of 58.6. I don't have Russ's directly in front of me, but it is in a similar.
Now, if you want to be
58.6 versus 61.2.
If you want to be optimistic about the Raiders, Derek Carr's grade has improved every week. Now,
that's me. I'm optimistic.
It went from 42, pretty bad, to 59, still bad, to 74. But if it continues on that track, this will be a pretty good week. Like 86, now we're cooking. The next week will be the best quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's how it's going to work, though.
I really want, because I know we focus so much on offenses. I really want to believe in the Raiders this week. Broncos defense has been legit, though.
Yeah.
They've got the number 3 pass rush behind the Bills and the Cowboys.
That's what this game.
And you feel it, right? I can feel Randy Gregory and Bradley Chubb playing well. You feel that as a fan of an opposing. When you're playing the Broncos, you're like, hey, they're coming, right? They're getting some pressure this year, playing well on the back end as well. This Broncos defense, I thought they might miss Vic Fangio. They haven't so far. They're talented. They're playing well. It's honestly the defense and the fact that I still do think Russell Wilson and Derek Carr are both better than what they've showed.
Yeah.
So if they both turn it around here, week 4, 5, 6, whenever it is, they will. Like, I believe that. But I think it's the Broncos defense that I'm starting to buy into that is going to have me lean Broncos here.
That's the differentiator for me in this game. Both offenses are way underperforming. Both quarterbacks are way underperforming. Nothing is functioning properly for either one of these offenses. There are a lot of problems. So you look at the other side of the ball, well, Denver's defense is much better than the Raiders. Therefore, that's where I'm leaning. Like, if I can't trust either offense, I'm going to have to focus on defense, and Denver clearly has a better defense.
Yeah, man, it's a crazy one for the Raiders, because we were right when Josh McDaniels took over, we were like, hey, do they punt on this year? And they were like, nope, we're trading for Devontae Adams, we're signing Chandler Jones and all this stuff. They're not punting on anything. Now they're in danger of going 0-4 in an AFC West that might not be as formidable as we thought, but it's still a difficult AFC. I mean, you still have good teams there. But it's Josh McDaniels started his career in Denver 6-0. He's in danger of falling 0-4 here with his Raiders start. So where are you going?
Denver.
You're taking Denver too.
Yeah.
All right. We've been in lockstep these last 4 games here. I'm sure we'll nail them. Cleveland Browns at the Atlanta Falcons. Browns favored by 1.5 in Atlanta in the Dome. What do you like in this one?
I like the game. I think this is a sneaky fun game. And I think I'm going to say that about every Falcons game this season.
Yeah.
I just, that offense is so fun to watch. I don't even care that their defense stinks. It's now 1 point, by the way.
Down to 1.
Yes.
All right. Doesn't mean anything.
Is at least the same way. So it hasn't swung dramatically, but yeah, it's 1. Yeah, look, I really like this Falcons offense. I think it's so good to watch. The collection of playmakers they have, the design of the offense, it's good. And the fact that their defense still isn't good, it actually makes their games more fun because they're probably going to put up some points. I don't know if they're going to do a great job of stopping anybody. And now they're going up against a Jacoby Brissett-led Browns offense, which itself hasn't been too bad. The Browns are able to run the ball well. They lead the NFL in rushing yardage, and Jacoby Brissett is on the back of 2 good games. One spectacular one that we talked about on yesterday's podcast, and one before that was really good right up until he threw it away. So I actually think this game's going to be a good one.
I feel like a broken record, but everybody on the Browns is questionable. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, he's groin injury. He's kind of a game-time decision, according to him. You got tackle Jedrick Wills, defensive tackle Taven Bryan. Anthony Walker's been pushed to injury reserve after his quad injury. Myles Garrett had the one car accident.
Yeah, mangled his Porsche.
Yes, and his shoulder biceps. Did not practice yesterday. I assume that's from the crash.
I mean, It would be a pretty big coincidence to just be injured at the same time, randomly.
Yeah, well, not really. Everybody's injured. But Jadeveon Clowney, ankle, questionable. Jack Conklin, Joel Bitonio, Joe Haig, Denzel Ward. It's their entire starting team. I don't know what to make of that.
Good analysis.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
I'm just repeating the guys. The Falcons, did they not put out an injury report? Per ESPN, we've got nobody on their they just have a bunch of guys on injured reserve.
Maybe they're all healthy.
The Falcons, yeah, they are. I mean, with Drake London's emergence, and you saw Kyle Pitts making plays last week, right? And then Cordell Patterson, right? Just Seattle's run defense was atrocious, but he takes advantage of it and creates some big plays. They are fun, and as long as Mariota doesn't get in his own way, they are fun. They're going to be the fun Falcons. I think what I'm watching with the Falcons is how well does that defense come together as the season goes on. Dean Pease running that defense. He's got a pretty good history and track record. It's just that the talent doesn't appear to be there on that side of the ball.
It isn't.
But do they start to gel? Does he outcoach the talent? Basically, I think it's been a struggle there in Atlanta for a few years. Even when Raheem Morris took over late in 2020, it was Dan Quinn's defense. They have just not had the talent on that side of the ball outside of a couple players. All that said, I like Jacoby Brissett. I like the way he's playing. I think he comes back down to earth a little bit here. Plus all those Cleveland injuries.
I mean, it does feel like, so Brissett, I think, is in a very good situation for him to be the best version of himself that we've seen in the NFL. That being said, outside of that one play at the end of the Jets game, it does kind of feel like we've been riding the high end of what he's capable of, and we're going to get a couple more of like, oh no, Jacoby, what was that? I don't know when that's going to come.
It's going to be at some point, right?
Yeah.
We did a daily earlier this week discussing Jacoby Brissett and if it keeps the Browns in not just playoff contention, but Super Bowl contention.
Yeah.
That's how they label
like
it.
Brissett's big problem is if he makes one or two of those plays, he doesn't make enough big plays to offset them. So if he has one of those, it's probably enough to lose the game.
It could be another week though where Jacoby just plays mistake-free football, doesn't miss a ton of throws, and it's looking, he's looking good. But I'm going to take Atlanta here. I'm going to take Atlanta with all the Cleveland injuries. I think it's going to be too tough for Brissett in the offense to overcome here.
I'm going to lean Browns, even though I think the Falcons will put up some points.
All right, Seattle Seahawks at the Detroit Lions. Lions are favored by 4 here. at home.
Yep.
1-2 versus 1-2 here.
Yeah. Seattle's defense is bad, very bad. They are second to last in EPA per play and scoring drive rate allowed. Like teams score on their drives at the second best rate in the NFL when they play Seattle. Can they slow down this Detroit offense at all, which has been a pretty good offense overall, despite Jared Goff being the quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, so DeAndre Swift, is he definitely out for the Lions?
I believe so, yeah.
He's averaging over 8 per carry. They've been doing a great job schematically just at the run game, right? I mean, the Detroit offense, we always talk about mismatches in the pass game. Let's get this guy on this this corner or whatever it is. Detroit's creating run game mismatches. They're like out-gapping teams, and just it's really fun to watch. But DeAndre Swift has been the beneficiary there and part of creating the big plays there. So Detroit's got their own issues because Swift wasn't practicing Thursday. Amon-Ra St. Brown also not practicing Thursday. He continues to play really well. DJ Chark not practicing Thursday at receiver, so a whole bunch of guys questionable here. TJ Hawkinson, Josh Reynolds. Lions are falling apart as well. Why?
Falling apart.
Why is everybody in the world questionable?
I don't know. They've been down a few important players for a while. Their thing, though, is that the guys they bring in have still been really good at the area that they need them to be good at. So Vaitai going down, the drop-off between Vaitai and his backups is pretty huge, actually. But it's concentrated at pass blocking. And the Lions have been doing a really good job of being so dominant on the ground, in part because those backups on the offensive line have been run blocking well, that they're able to stay ahead of the chains and not put them into so many bad positions in terms of pass blocking. So the fact that there's a big drop-off has actually been minimized by the way that they've been impressive with the backup guys. So I don't think that the Seattle defense can slow down Detroit's offense at all. And then it flips on the other side. Is what can Detroit's defense do against Geno?
Yeah, so really quick, Seattle's defense, number 7, 7th worst pass rushing grade, 2nd worst coverage grade, 2nd worst run defense grade, 4th worst run defense grade. And you mentioned 2nd worst in EPA per play.
Yeah.
Other side, Geno's playing pretty well overall. He's playing pretty well. He threw the ball to the defense a couple times last week, got away with a couple. But Geno continues to distribute and play well. And again, I know Tyler Lockett was banged up for them. He started to find DK more than he had in the earlier weeks. The Seahawks, I think, just have to lean into that. Like DK Metcalf has to be a downfield threat for the Seahawks. But Geno Smith, I think he's completing 77% of his passes or something ridiculous like that. He's just not missing a ton of throws. He's at 77.5% through 3 weeks. And it's not all short stuff. They've definitely had a more conservative offense. He started to stretch the field a little bit more last week. Did a nice job. Geno's not taking the sacks that he usually does, right? He's usually one of those guys with the way we describe Tannehill or a Brissett or a Mariota. It's like, hey, they just take a lot of negative plays. A Wentz. Geno's not doing that right now. So that's the one thing I think that can keep Seattle in this game. Geno Smith did have a couple turnover-worthy plays, like I said last week, but he's almost like Stafford-ish right now. Everything that when he misses, it's right to the defense so far. His accuracy has been just fantastic. So I think this is a sneaky good game as well. If you're just looking for entertainment value, the Lions are always entertaining. 4 feels like a lot, but I just don't trust that Seahawks defense on the road in the Dome.
Yeah.
By the way, matchup-wise, 2 first-rounders, Aiden Hutchinson going up against Charles Cross.
True.
Fun to watch, too.
And even the other side as well. I mean, Aiden Hutchinson moves around left to right on that defensive
line. Oh, yeah,
against
against Abraham Lucas as well.
So it'll be rookie-on-rookie crime, whatever happens.
Oh, man, I don't know. The MASH unit, every team, I don't want to bet on the teams that are all MASH units here.
I'm going Detroit. I don't think that Seattle can slow them down.
Give me Detroit. All right, New England Patriots at the Green Bay Packers. Packers by 9.5. Mac Jones is out. Is he officially out? I mean, he's out.
It's got to be out.
The ankle injury.
Yeah.
Which means Brian, what's his real name?
Axel. What is his name? There's Axel something.
Rose Hoyer?
No, it's not Axl Rose. Axel Edward Brian Hoyer is his full name.
I mean, dude, if you rolled with that, he'd be a 10-year starter, not a 10-year backup.
Axel Hoyer would not be a backup in the NFL. Axel Hoyer would be a starter, would be dragging some team to the postseason, would be gritty, getting it done.
That's what I'm saying.
We wouldn't be concerned that the line wouldn't be moving in the wrong direction with Axel at quarterback. This is the solution to everything here.
Mac Jones is the only player in the NFL that's listed as doubtful. It's the only guy I've seen that's doubtful so far. Wasn't spotted at practice on Thursday.
I would have listed him as doubtful the second I saw him injure his ankle, given his pain level.
Now, there was a point, the last time we saw Brian Hoyer for a while was 2017. There was a point in Brian Hoyer's career where if you played him pre-Halloween, he was pretty good.
Yeah.
And then it was like, once he got into November and December, not so hot.
Wheels fell off pretty quickly.
It was something like a 90 passer rating down to like 40 or something. I mean, it was like a ridiculous. So if you get early season Hoyer here, which it is, Patriots have a chance.
He's another one of those players, though, where this happens a lot of the time, where these guys hang around as backup quarterbacks for years, based off a stretch where they played as a starter and they were okay or good, and then we're like, oh, this is one of the best backups in the NFL. Like we're laughing here, but then they at some point they age. It's like, well, how long can you sit on the bench for and deteriorate and just sort of fester before you're no longer that guy? Like for years, Matt Moore had that where he was a great backup quarterback, and then he sat there for so many years that he finally got on again. It's like, oh, that doesn't look like he used to.
He still played well with the
Matt
Chiefs.
Castle, same thing. Matt Castle built a career off like 1 year and then just languished on the bench for a decade. But towards the end, it's like, well, that's not the same guy. He's done. He's been done for years, just nobody noticed because he hasn't thrown the ball. I don't know whether that's true or not for Axel Hoyer, but it could be. Like the last time we saw him was 2017. It was a long time ago.
He did have that spot start in 2020.
2017, I had hair. Yours was black. There's a lot of things have changed since 2017.
Mine could still be black in a couple weeks.
Yeah, and I could still have hair if I wore a wig. I mean,
After seeing Liz. Brian Hoyer did have a spot start in 2020 against the Chiefs.
Axel, please.
Axel Hoyer. Well, Axel wouldn't have gone 15 for 24 for 130 and a pick.
Probably
Brian did, though.
Yeah.
In that game, the Chiefs pulled away and won 26-10, but it feels like one of those, right, where the Patriots defense in that game actually did a great job against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. They're playing Rodgers and the Packers this time around, and it feels like one of those games, right, where the Patriots defense is going to have to step up. Last week, I don't think we mentioned it at the time, but the Packers were unstoppable on their first two drives. Didn't score the rest of the way, including a goal line fumble. That has shown up every now and again in the Matt LaFleur era, right, where they're like really good, the Packers offense, scripted early in the game, and for whatever reason, they just don't play well in the second half, or beyond that, they just don't move the ball nearly as well. I think that's, if you're a Patriots fan, you're kind of like banking on that, right? Like kind of hold them off, hope that the Belichicks scheme it up really well, and Hoyer doesn't make any mistakes, and you sneak a few big plays and just kind of keep it close. So I could kind of see that happening. The Packers get up early, the Patriots figure them out a little bit, it keeps it close. But at the end of the day, it's Aaron Rodgers versus Brian Hoyer. Rodgers throwing the ball extremely well right now. He was not very good in week one, but I don't think it wasn't like week one last year where I think he was just bad last year. Right now, I think the offense was just trying to figure things out early on. He's throwing the ball well, Rodgers. I think he's going to be fine, and I think they cover the 9.5. I'm just painting this picture of the Patriots could play it tough, but you're banking on Belichick being like defensive coach God to keep it close.
Yeah. I think the line makes a ton of sense because, Rodgers versus Axel Hoyer.
But if this line, if this was week 15, isn't this line like 14? Isn't it way more? It feels like you have bigger lines later in the year.
Yeah, I get
low.
I think it's large and it makes sense. And the reason you would be sort of saying, New England covers it is because Bill Belichick's defense and all that kind of stuff. But it might not be as bad as I said it was going to be heading into the season, but it's average at best right now, their defense. So even if Rodgers is dealing without receivers, the Belichick defense right now is a rank average unit, and they've got Brian Hoyer at quarterback.
And the app kind of likes the Patriots plus 9.5 here.
I know, and I get why, but
I think the app is, I think they factored in Axel. I think they threw the name in there.
Oh, okay.
That's why.
I hate
Over-under for this one's 40, by the way.
Yeah, another really low one. I am going to bet on the Patriots and hate every second of it.
Really?
Yeah.
All right, I'll take the Packers.
I'm not going against Axel.
I'll take the Packers comfortably, but if it's one of those if it's 17-10 or something like that, where the Packers are up 17-0, and then it's 17-10, they win.
And that's the other thing is the lower that over under, the lower the scoring, the harder it is to cover 9.5.
Yeah. All right, we got 4 more games to discuss here. Arizona Cardinals at the Carolina Panthers. Panthers by 1.5. Is that right as well?
You're gonna make me check every single one of these when we get to the game. 2 now.
Panthers to 2 here, huh?
Yeah.
Man, Panthers. They won last week. What a weird way to describe it. I mean, the Panthers' offense this year has been. Remember week 1, Baker Mayfield in the offense that couldn't move the ball, and then there's just like a 65-yarder to Ian Thomas. Last week, same thing, right? It's just a random quick smoke screen to Laviska Shenault for 67, and he's got 2 catches for 90 yards. It's a rough offense in Carolina outside of a few freak plays right now.
Yeah, their offense is terrible. It's relying on a couple of guys making some athletic plays to get anything going. Their offense reminds me a lot of, in the Irish League, nobody has time to practice, right? It's an amateur thing people are doing in their spare time. So I've always thought that the best way of running an offense in the Irish League is to just have 5 plays, and just drill those 5 plays so you out-execute everybody.
Like Novocaine.
Well, like the NFL, but in the 50s and 60s, where you just the Packers dynasty with Vince Lombardi was built off mastering the toss sweep, right? It was like, we're just going to execute this better than you can stop it, and we're going to drill it every day in practice, and we are going to master this play so well that we're just going to out execute you every single time. You can't do that anymore because everybody's executes well generally, but the lower level you go in football, the more that's applicable. That simply executing your thing reasonably well is enough to win. So that's what the Panthers, they're running this offense that's like, well, if we just execute these plays better than you, we're going to win. Yeah, but you're not, and you don't have anything else. So you stink. They're running this offense that looks like it belongs at a level of football 2 or 3 levels lower than this, and it's consequently not functioning.
You stink.
Yeah.
That's what you're telling the Panthers.
I mean, their offense does stink.
It does.
I'm not telling them anything that the numbers don't tell them.
Baker's got, the second worst grade in the NFL? Is that right?
Yeah.
Just ahead of
Justin Fields.
Oh, we'll get there. We'll get there to Fields. Yeah, this is the worst Baker Mayfield's ever played here.
Yeah.
Combined with the offense
including
stinks.
When he was playing with a broken shoulder.
Yeah.
This is worse.
It is. Can they turn it around? Can they get any better? The Panthers' offense should be better.
Yeah, but it won't be if they don't change the offense, which is running a system that looks like it belongs at a level of football where people have other jobs.
The defense is looking decent for Carolina, and it's not looking so good for Arizona. This could be the time for the Panthers to come alive here just a little bit. The Cardinals have a 41 defense grade on the PFF PFF Premium Stats 2.0, 29.6 in coverage, both the worst numbers in the NFL by a pretty healthy margin. And I think all of that is the reason why the Panthers are favored in this game. This is, you gave Baker an ultimatum a couple weeks ago. Like, if he doesn't do it this week, this is it.
I'm out.
This is really, if they don't.
Oh, no, I'm already out. I'm done.
What?
I'm already out. I'm done.
Oh, you could be out on him. I'm just saying, if the Panthers offense doesn't move the ball this week at home against the Cardinals defense, then they're in trouble.
Yeah.
More than they are. More than right now. Where's their offense grade? 3rd worst in the NFL, 60.6. And then you got Kyler. This is your Oklahoma matchup here. Kyler, Baker.
Number 1 overall pick.
Number 1 overall picks.
Number 1 versus number 1.
I love those.
That looked a lot better a while ago than it does now.
Kyler still looks fine. I think he's still good. He's still fine. I think Arizona's offseason moves have caught up to them, man. Not having DeAndre Hopkins out there hurts, but their defense got worse this offseason. I'm not saying we're right about everything, but
good.
coming into the season, the few teams that stood out as getting worse, Arizona, Tennessee, Dallas, pretty much have in the areas that we were talking about, right? I feel like Dallas is going to stay afloat because Micah Parsons is superhuman, and the residual effect of that is significant. But Arizona got worse. They got worse this offseason. They're now underdogs at Carolina, who can't make a first down outside of a fluke play. Give me Arizona.
Yeah.
All that said, better quarterback getting points.
I can't buy into an offense that doesn't look like it's designed for this level of football.
Kyler Murray's dropped back 151 times through 3 games. They did have, I'm not saying you're going to strive for balance on offense, but he's dropped back 151 times, averaging 5.6 yards per attempt. He's much better when there's a semblance of a run game. And he's throwing the ball down the field, not just all underneath stuff right now.
There also needs to be, I think there needs to be more of Kyler needs to be in the run game.
Yes.
Designed.
All of it.
Remember, was it a couple of years ago? He had an absolute ton of rushing success.
I think Rondale's back, by the way, speaking of short game.
Wow. Is that a pun?
Oh, no, that's an average depth of target joke, not a height joke.
Okay.
They don't throw the ball. They throw short to Rondale, not he's a short person.
Because it would have been a good pun. I'm just saying. That would have been a good joke.
Could be a double entendre.
It could be. It's probably not.
All right, give me Arizona.
We explained that it isn't.
We have 15 minutes. They got hard out at 2:30. What?
You better get a move on that.
Jets and Steelers. I got Steelers radio this afternoon. I'm going to pick the Steelers to win by a million. That's what I do on Steelers radio. I know my audience. Speaking of optimistic fans, the 1-2 Steelers, we got, this could be Zach Wilson against Kenny Pickett, but it's Zach Wilson against Mitchell Trubisky. Hey, Trubisky played pretty well on the Thursday night game. Another one of those examples, I think, when he made a good throw, it fell incomplete.
Yeah.
He tried to throw the ball down the field a little bit more.
He was fine in that game.
Yes. There's a disconnect there, though. Trubisky, I don't like when this happens. We talked about Cousins kind of like breaks things. He could play well and not win games and the whole thing. Trubisky has this knack for when he plays the best, his offenses do the worst. And when he plays poorly, his offenses do well. That's what I've seen.
Doesn't feel useful.
Like when he's actually more accurate and all that stuff, it's like it's part of this disjointed offense. And then, he didn't play well in the years that the Bears were moving the ball. That one year, 2018, got kind of lucky.
So Zach Wilson's probably coming back for this game.
Yes, I'm excited.
The Jets' offensive line is in ribbons.
I'm not excited about that part. I want to see Zach Wilson with the entire supporting cast there.
Yeah, they're going up against Pittsburgh. This feels like a game where Zach Wilson comes back, looks like absolute garbage.
No, but who's Pittsburgh rushing besides Cam Hayward?
Does it matter? Look at the Jets' offensive line. You could be out there and get 6 pressures.
I got a good rip move.
You could take down George Fant?
Cameron Hayward's the only one in that defensive front grading above 70 right now.
Yeah, but as I said, it won't matter.
I'm sorry. And Alex Highsmith on the edge. Yeah. I'm more likely to say, hey, Minka's going to be locked in on Zach Wilson, going to maybe pick off a couple passes here.
The Jets' offensive line have given up by far the most pressure in the NFL so far this season. They have the 3rd worst pass blocking efficiency number ahead of only Seattle and Chicago, who barely pass the ball, so they've got a small sample size issue going there. They're worse than the Giants. Their line is bad.
Yeah, that could be a rough return for Zach Wilson. I don't know that he's just going to magically be that much better, but I can't wait to watch.
And also remember, every statistical sign, and the tape, that's where it came from, but every sign from Zach Wilson's rookie season was this dude is overwhelmed by what's happening right now and making everything worse because of it. You're then putting him into an offensive line that's bad right now, going up against Pittsburgh defense, which, isn't what it used to be, but is still more than capable of making a mess for a young quarterback struggling. I don't know. Everyone's going to be excited because it's Zach Wilson back. He's got some receivers to throw to. Yay, excitement. He's not Joe Flacco. It feels like a game where you might get reminded just how far away Zach Wilson looked the last time we saw him.
Yeah, I think you're talking me into that a little bit. The other side, I think Pittsburgh's close offensively. I was actually somewhat more encouraged by at least chucking it downfield a little bit more in the last game. Terrible numbers. Average depth of target for Trubisky, 9.3. Not bad. Because last week they were throwing down the field. Only 5.4 yards per attempt this season. But it was his best passing game last week. It didn't always connect. I think it's going to connect this week because, they had 3 drops, and some of his best throws just fell incomplete the other day. Mm-hmm. Pittsburgh's going to play better offensively this week.
Okay.
The Jets are a little bit more hit or miss on the defense, still having communication issues and things there.
I like their defense, though. It's got some talent now.
Yes.
Like last season, they just had nobody good.
The talent is much better. Even just like the grades are better. Got to fix the miscommunications, the busted coverages, and things that the Jets have had the last couple of years. Give me Pittsburgh. Cover the 3.5. Look at that.
Same.
Positive about the Steelers. 2 more games. Chicago Bears at the New York Giants.
Yeah.
Give me the stat. I mean, my note is I wish this was 1986.
Yeah.
86 Bears. 80. That mid 80s Bears against the mid 80s Giants. That would have been special. Instead, it's 2022. Bears Giants. We got the Giants favored by 3 in this one.
Yeah.
2-1 versus 2-1, by the way.
I know, right?
Maybe it is 86.
Justin Fields has 297 passing yards in 3 games. Now, okay, one of them was in a rainstorm.
2-1.
Yeah, and that's what the Chicago Bears fans are chanting in my mentions.
Someone in YouTube said, quit letting a few people troll you and defining the fan base.
It's quite a lot, though. It's a lot of people.
But that's like your
and that's,
your
by the
mute
way,
button.
I was going to say, that's only the people that I haven't yet muted. We've been through multiple rounds of this, and I've muted a large portion of Chicago people. So this is just the ones left over that are still populating my mentions.
You must have muted all the 2018 fans.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So 19 times this season, a quarterback has thrown more than 297 passing yards in a single game. Joe Flacco has done it twice. Geno Smith has done it once. This is a terrible level of this is a historical level of ineptitude from the passing game. Okay, there have been some rushing plays in there as well.
But you're judging it by yards. It's not.
I mean, pick your stat. He's got the worst passing grade in the NFL. He's got a passing grade of 38.
But they're not throwing for 297 just because of ineptitude. It's because they've dropped back 65 times. I mean, to me, that's the number as I'm looking at this. That's an interesting one. 20 out of 65 dropbacks have resulted in a non-pass attempt.
Yeah. So this is the other thing.
A scramble or a sack.
They don't pass the ball very much. Half the time, not half the time, but a big chunk of the plays, they call passes. They're not passes because Justin Fields takes off or gets sacked. This is a bad offense that's just about clinging on because they've had a reasonable degree of rushing success. And anybody going, 2-1. Okay, 1 was a rainstorm game that we said from day one, chuck it out. It means
Throw
nothing.
it out.
It means nothing to anybody. The other one was against the Texans.
It means 1-0. That's what it means. It meant 1-0.
Yeah, but the other one was against the Texans.
Well, now they're going to play the Giants, and they're going to beat the Giants and move to 3-1.
I mean, they
and
might.
Then what's your
that
excuse?
won't mean anything either.
Jonathan Taylor's back at practice, by the way. Man, you should have just played through it yesterday. If you're going to lose one
That's
practice.
That's what I'm saying.
Just play through it.
Yeah.
Keep the streak alive.
Also, by the way,
Cal Ripken would have.
Missed practice? Surely he could have just, been there doing something.
Yeah.
Just to keep the streak.
Mix in a rep so you're limited.
Remember when Randy Moss had his start streak and he was badly injured and they put him out there for one snap just to keep the streak alive?
Very important.
Yeah, and then he realized, actually, no, you know what, I can't walk, so they shut him down after that.
I mean, it's like signing the one-day contract.
Yeah,
just
but you could have put him out there, given him a handoff, let him just sit down on the play, and then, oh, no, he's out. But he would have kept the streak alive.
So Justin Fields has a 43 overall grade, 38 as a passer. I think in all of this, Sam, we haven't learned anything about Justin Fields. I mean, I guess...
Well, we've learned that exactly what we predicted heading into the season is happening, which is the Bears do not have enough around him that he can do anything other than fail this year.
Yeah.
The question is, what do you do with that understanding? I mean, the context is Tua. For the first couple of years, Tua did not have a viable platform around him. Therefore, any analysis of Tua was unfair to Tua. And we're learning that this year, right? All of a sudden, the situation around him is better, and it looks great. He doesn't just look better, he looks great. So if that's true, and that's the sort of impact that a viable / non-viable situation around a quarterback can have, if you're Chicago, what do you get out of this season other than you junk it? You throw it out. There's another season you throw out.
Let's throw out another season. Yeah, I mean, it's a struggle offensively, and they're running the ball well. I mean, they've got Khalil Herbert had a great game last week. He's averaging over 7 per carry. David Montgomery, when he was healthy, 4.5 per carry. And Fields is making a few plays on the ground, but it's not like he's tearing it up there. They're just relying on this run game and not trusting Justin Fields. And I know it might not be the best situation for him, but at some point you got to figure out what he is as a passer or let him develop as a passer.
But again, it's so much of that. It's a combination, right? It's the offense is not calling very many pass plays, but there's so many plays where they are calling them, and Justin Fields is not doing what he's supposed to be doing.
No, I get it.
Like as I say,
if 31% of your dropbacks are ending in a sack or a scramble, I don't have the NFL average off the top of my head here, but it's way less than that.
Yes, I mean there was that play that I talked about on the review show where drop back pass attempt. He held onto the ball for an age in a clean pocket and then had to scramble out of it by, held on to it so long he got pressure and then had to run, scramble, and make a play. It's like, okay, fine. That's a productive play for the offense. It goes down in the rushing numbers. It's fine. But that's a really bad process play for a quarterback that's supposedly, trying to show that he can be the guy going forward. Like Justin Fields does not look it right now.
Now I want to find out this number. I'll do it later.
I don't have that kind of time.
All right. Giants by 3?
Ugh.
Say something about the Giants. Still don't know much about them either, I don't think. I'll say this. Saquon Barkley does look awesome.
Yeah.
As far as like what he was. It's not necessarily snap to snap awesome. We said it at the time, like if I'm drafting a running back, that's the type of guy I want. A guy that if you block it up, can take it to the house and can catch the ball out of the backfield. I love that asset that they have there. But Barkley would look that much better if the receiving core that they built, invested in, Kenny Golladay, Kadarius Toney, if they were out there and as good as we thought they could be.
I do not understand why the Giants cannot keep the receiving core that they've invested in on the field. This has been the story for multiple years now, that what looks like a pretty good group on paper, and certainly talent-wise, just doesn't play together, ever. Look at the number of their leading target getters across all positions this season. 21 targets for Sterling Shepard, who just blew out his ACL jogging to a stop during the game against Dallas. Richie James Jr., 16 targets. That's number 2. Saquon Barkley, 15 targets. That's number 3. David Sills is their number 4 targeted receiver.
I know why you say it with that sort of emphasis. Not everybody does. Just saying.
Is it not self-explanatory?
He's not the best player.
No.
Yeah.
No, he's not. I mean, look, David Sills had a play against the Cowboys where he just cut and fell over, and that pretty much sums up David Sills as a receiver. So he's there. I'm saying he's got their 4th highest number of targets. Daniel Bellinger, the tight end, 6th. Kenny Golladay, the dude they're paying $72 million to, is 6th with 5 targets. Kadarius Toney, their first-round pick, who looks really talented, 3 targets and has barely seen the field. How is this so hard?
I don't know who wins this game, because whoever wins is the worst 3-1 team in NFL history. This is the worst 3-1 NFL team. I might call for a tie, because I don't think either team should be 3-1.
I think the Bears cover. I'm not willing to say either one of them wins the game.
And listen, you might be a hater and think that I'm a hater, but when I called the Panthers the worst 6-2 team in history back in 2018, I was right, because they ended up 8-8.
They ended up bad, yeah.
In no time. All right, last game, Los Angeles Chargers at the Houston Texans. The Chargers favored by 5. Chargers, speaking of everybody's questionable, they've gone beyond that. They're like, everybody's out.
I mean, we can the hype wagon for the Chargers, the preseason champions, the offseason champions every single year. This is their season. It's all going to come together. I mean, we're week 3, and we can finally bury that thing again. Like, the grave has been dug. Somebody's out there chiseling the headstone. The Chargers hype wagon it's over. It's dead.
Yeah, but they're going to cover 5 against the Texans, right?
Maybe. I mean, look, Justin Herbert's still banged up, actually on the injury report, apparently. But the big thing is Rashawn Slater's down. Storm Norton is our left tackle. This feels like the kind of game where they will quickly. Okay, they haven't yet picked up the phone to Eric Fisher and said, "Hey, can you show up? I mean, we might have a spot at left tackle for you." They will after this game.
Jamari Sawyer, I think, might get the start here at left tackle.
He's going to start at left tackle?
Yeah. That's what we have in our depth chart per some reports, with Trey Pipkins
I mean, I'm willing to say
right
that's
tackle.
a better option than starting Storm Norton at left tackle.
Sawyer was, what, a 6th rounder this past year?
6th rounder, built like a guard, actually had pretty productive grades as a left tackle for Georgia. I like that as an option.
So Joey Bosa is also out.
Yep.
And the interesting player replacing him is Chris Rumpf from Duke, who was kind of an undersized pass rusher, but like technically sound. He's bulked up a little bit, flashed a little bit this preseason. For whatever it's worth, I'll be excited to see him. But some of the big name signings too, like J.C. Jackson hasn't done much at all so far this season. So the Sebastian Joseph Day is grading a little bit below average. Some of the players that led to the Chargers' hype, not only are they banged up across the board, but some of their additions have not played very well.
Yeah.
And their receiving core has been an absolute mess.
And banged up. And yeah, the Chargers they're cursed. The whole, whatever the Rams are doing, it's like, hey, what are they doing from a sports science and a medical standpoint? Like what witchcraft is going on?
You think you could bug the Rams office and maybe,
They're in the same building.
Yeah.
Ish. Like, at least the same city, Whatever about when they were
bug the Rams trailers.
Right. Whatever about when they were playing in San Diego, and you'd be like, okay, it's clearly wherever they've built this facility is just cursed. You moved to Los Angeles. You're right there where another team is somehow performing miracles relative to keeping guys injured, and you're still injury cursed. I mean, look, it's probably too simplistic to draw a direct line between, hey, some guy tried to give a guy a pain-killing injection and punctured his lung, and the Chargers are constantly injured. It's probably too simplistic.
Is he still there?
Yeah, I think. I'm just saying, that's probably too simple. It's probably too direct a line to draw.
But you're a simple guy. You're like a Jared Goff doesn't know where the sun sets type of guy, so.
But it's probably, the only thing I would say is it's probably not unconnected. There you go. There's probably some connection there, certainly when you compare it with the Rams and the fact that their sports science department somehow seems to keep everybody upright all the time.
I thought the bigger issue last week was Herbert playing with the torn cartilage. Again, makes one out-of-this-world spectacular throw, missed a bunch of others, and just didn't seem right. I'm hoping he's healthier and looks a little bit better. I think they'll cover the 5. I'm not giving up on the hype wagon here. There's still too much talent there. Still too much talent. The Chargers. I need a few more weeks.
On the road. Oh, God, I don't like it.
Need a few more weeks here.
All right, because you've told me that Storm Norton isn't starting, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt.
Such a Storm Norton hater.
Dude, he gave up 7 pressures in like 21 snaps. The guy's a train wreck.
Well, that's why he's not starting. All right, that's it. Week 4. That's it for our podcast this week.
Done.
Go check out yesterday, too. Preview Thursday Night Football. We've got some people upset that we have not properly covered Monday Night Football the last couple weeks. We might need to squeeze that back into the Wednesday show. Monday Night Football recap. There's an angry email in there.
Yeah?
There's a guy who's like ready to bail.
The purpose of the mailbag was not to send us angry emails.
Don't send us angry emails. Constructive criticism, feedback, love it. I will at least entertain it. But don't be so mad, man. We're just trying to do our best here.
A lot of angry people.
Yeah. And we hope you do your best by hitting that thumbs up button. YouTube.
God, that's weak.
Smash the thumbs up button on the way out. Like that. Like this thing so we can,
That's
go
the first time you told them to hit the thumbs up button, and it's like 2 hours into this podcast.
I know. Everybody tell everyone else to hit the thumbs up. I mean, if we have 20,000 views on this thing, we should have 20,000 likes. And then your heckler will give it a thumbs down.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks to everybody for tuning in. We'll be back on Monday reviewing all the Week 4 action.